Hey everyone, tonight we're going to dive into the lost world of Rome's vanished legionaries, a tale that stretches from the blood-soaked sands of Parthia to the distant whispers of a Chinese village. Picture this: you're standing on a dusty battlefield, shields clashing, arrows raining down, and thousands of Roman soldiers trained, disciplined, unbreakable, simply vanish into history's shadows. You probably won't believe where they might have ended up, but stick with me, because this story's wilder than a chariot race on a stormy night. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I love seeing where you're all tuning in from. Now, turn down the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soft background music, and let's get started tonight. You stand on the sun-scorched plains of Carrhae. The year is 53 BCE, and the air hums with the whistle of arrows slicing through it. You're a Roman legionary, sweat-soaked under your heavy armor, shield raised as part of Marcus Licinius Crassus's grand army. The wealthiest man in Rome, Crassus dreams of military glory to rival Caesar and Pompey. But right now, you're just trying to avoid becoming a Parthian pincushion. The Parthians, led by General Serena, are unlike any enemy you've faced. Their horse archers move like ghosts, firing volleys of arrows with deadly precision, never closing in for the close-quarter combat Romans are built for. Your tightly packed formations, perfect for crushing Gauls, are useless here in the open desert. Over 2 brutal days, the Parthians encircle you, their arrows shredding shields and morale. Crassus's son, Publius, falls early. His cavalry unit swarmed. By the end, 20,000 Romans lie dead. Crassus himself is lured to a parley and executed his head. Rumor has it, later used as a prop in a Parthian play. But the real mystery isn't the dead. It's the 10,000 soldiers like you who vanish, swallowed by the Parthian Empire. Where did they go? Historians still debate whether you were enslaved, executed, or something stranger sent east, far beyond Rome's maps. You blink the dust from your eyes, the battlefield, now a haze of chaos. The Parthians don't slaughter everyone. Instead, they bind your wrists, march you away from the carnage. You're not alone. Thousands of your comrades, grizzled legionaries, are herded like cattle. You hear whispers of Margiana, a distant Parthian outpost, but that's weeks away. For now, you trudge under the relentless sun, your lorica segmentata clanking, the weight of defeat heavier than your armor. You pass nomads who stare at you like you're a curiosity, a Roman so far from the Tiber. One soldier next to you, a wiry Gaul auxiliary, mutters, "Bet they're saving us for lion fights." You chuckle, but it's hollow. The Parthians aren't known for circuses. They're practical, and you're valuable, trained, disciplined, capable of building roads or holding a line. You wonder if you'll ever see Rome again, or if you'll die in some forgotten corner of this endless empire. The odd detail sticks with you as you march. The Parthians don't strip your armor. They let you keep it, as if they know its value, not just for protection, but for what it represents. Roman engineering, Roman discipline. You catch a Parthian officer eyeing your shield, not with greed, but with respect. It's unsettling. These aren't barbarians, they're calculating. You overhear 2 captives betting on whether you'll be sold to silk merchants or forced to dig ditches. Maybe they'll make us build a wall to keep out their own nomads, one jokes, spitting into the sand. You smirk, but the thought lingers. Parthia's eastern borders are wild, contested. Trained soldiers like you could be useful there. The march stretches on, days blurring into nights, your sandals wearing thin. You pass mud brick villages, smell unfamiliar spices, Hear languages that twist your tongue. The world feels bigger than you ever imagined, and Rome smaller. You try to piece together what went wrong at Carrhae. Crassus underestimated the Parthians' mobility, their endless supply of arrows carried by camel trains. You remember the moment you realized the arrows weren't stopping thousands, tens of thousands, raining down until the ground looked like a porcupine. You'd heard stories of Parthian wealth, their gold and horses, but no one warned you about their cunning. Now, as a prisoner, you're starting to see it. The Parthians don't waste resources, not even defeated Romans. You pass a waterless riverbed, and a fellow captive, a grizzled centurion, nudges you. Heard they're sending us to guard their backside against nomads. Better than dying, eh? You nod, but you're not sure. The idea of serving Parthia, the empire that crushed you, twists your gut like bad wine. Still, survival's survival. You grip your shield tighter, the only piece of Rome you've got left. The nights are colder now. The stars unfamiliar. You're far from the Tiber's banks, from the taverns where you'd boast about battles. You share a fire with a Syrian auxiliary who claims he once saw a Parthian priest sacrifice a goat to predict victory. They read guts like we read scrolls, he says, poking the fire. You laugh, the first real one in days, imagining Crassus's face if he'd tried that trick. The humor fades fast, though. You're a long way from home, and the Parthians aren't chatting about your future. You overhear a guard mention Margiana, and your heart sinks. That's no day trip, it's the edge of their world, where deserts meet mountains, where Rome's eagles don't fly. You wonder if you'll become a ghost out here, forgotten by the Senate, by the gods. But for now, you march, one foot in front of the other, into a story no Roman bard will ever sing. You stumble forward in the endless march, your boots kicking up dust that tastes like defeat and distant spices, the kind that would make a Roman tavern chef jealous. The sun beats down like it's got a personal grudge, turning your armor into a portable oven, perfect for baking a legionary medium rare. You're one of those 10,000 vanished soldiers now, the ones Rome will mourn but never quite explain. The Parthians herd you like sheep, their horses prancing around with that smug mobility that got you into this mess. You glance at your comrades, faces etched with exhaustion, and the occasional, "What in Hades just happened?" expression. One guy next to you, a burly veteran from Hispania, cracks a weak joke. "At least the Parthians don't make us pay for the arrows they shot at us," talk about customer service. You chuckle softly, the sound muffled by the clank of chains, because, hey, if you're gonna vanish into history, might as well do it with a grin. The canonical event here is the aftermath of Carrhae, where those 10,000 Romans, about a quarter of Crassus's force, were captured alive, a rare mercy in ancient warfare that the Parthians extended for reasons more pragmatic than kind. Roman sources like Plutarch paint it as a humiliation. The eagles lost, the men gone, but Parthian records are frustratingly silent, leaving you to fill in the blanks with sore feet and sore pride. You pass through scrubby plains that stretch forever, the horizon mocking you with its emptiness. Water rations are stingy, handed out in leather skins that smell like they've been recycled from old saddles. You sip carefully, imagining it's Falernian wine instead of this tepid muck, and whisper to the guy ahead, "Remember that tavern in Antioch? Bet they'd charge extra for this vintage." He snorts, and for a moment, the chain gang feels like a bad road trip with old friends. But the mystery deepens as the days drag on. Historians still debate whether these vanished legionaries were executed en masse or repurposed, with some arguing the Parthians saw too much value in Roman muscle to waste it on a whim. You overhear guards chatting in their guttural tongue, picking out words like east and frontier, and your stomach twists not from hunger, though that's real enough, but from the realization that Rome's maps end here. You're entering the unknown, where eagles turn into myths. An odd detail catches your eye. One Parthian rider wears a captured Roman helmet, tilted jauntily like he's auditioning for a comedy sketch in the Forum. It's absurd. This blend of worlds, your gear on their heads, their arrows in your nightmares. You mutter to yourself, if only Crassus had packed more camels instead of ego, and the thought brings a wry smile, lightening the load just a bit. The march turns into a rhythm, almost hypnotic, your feet syncing with the thud of hooves and the jingle of harnesses. You smell the sweat of men and beasts, mixed with the faint, exotic tang of incense from a passing caravan silk traders, probably eyeing you like you're yesterday's news. They don't stop. No one's coming to ransom a lowly legionary. You think back to training in the camps, the endless drills that made you unbreakable, and wonder if that'll help now. A younger recruit stumbles, and you steady him with a chained arm, saying, "Easy there, kid, save the dramatics for when we hit a real hill." He grins weakly, and it's these small acts that keep the despair at bay. The nights bring relief, cool air whispering through the camp like a forgotten lover, stars wheeling overhead in patterns that don't match the ones over the Colosseum. You huddle around meager fires, sharing stories to pass the time. One man boasts about his farm in Campania, another jokes about starting a Parthian branch of the legions. We'll call it the Lost Eagles Club, membership by capture only. As the landscape shifts plains, giving way to rugged hills, dotted with scraggly trees, you sense the Parthians' plan unfolding. They're not marching you to execution pits. This feels like relocation, whispers spread through the ranks. They're sending us to guard their borders, turn us into their shields. It makes sense the Parthians are empire builders too, always eyeing threats from the east, those nomadic hordes that make even tough Romans shiver. You spot a river glinting in the distance, a lifeline in this arid waste, and the guards quicken the pace. Bathing in it later, the water cold and gritty, washes away some grime, but not the uncertainty. You scrub your skin, feeling the scars from old battles, and ponder if new ones await. A comrade splashes you playfully, yelling, "Hey, don't hog the spa." Parthian luxury at its finest, laughter ripples. A brief oasis in the ordeal. Deeper into Parthian territory, the villages grow more fortified, walls of baked brick rising like silent sentinels. Locals stare from doorways, children pointing at your strange armor, women veiling their faces, but not their curiosity. You catch snippets of conversation traders bartering in a babble of tongues and realize how far you've come. Rome feels like a dream, faded and distant. The unusual detail emerges during a rest stop. A Parthian healer tends to a wounded captive, using herbs that smell like mint and mystery, wrapping the injury with silk bandages. Silk, the stuff Roman nobles pay fortunes for, and here it's used like common linen. You shake your head, thinking, Crassus came for glory, and we're getting bandaged in luxury. Irony's got a cruel sense of humor. The debate among scholars lingers in your mind as you press on. Did these soldiers rebel, escape, or integrate? Some say they formed mercenary bands. Others insist they were broken and scattered. You don't know yet, but the chains feel looser, the guards less vigilant, as if they're grooming you for something useful. A storm rolls in one afternoon, thunder growling like angry gods, rain turning the path to mud that sucks at your sandals. You slog through it, drenched and miserable, but alive. Better than arrow rain, someone quips, and you nod, the joke a thin shield against the elements. As dusk falls, campfires flicker like hopeful stars, and you hunker down, dreaming of home, while the mystery of your fate unspools like a thread leading east. The march resumes at dawn, the air crisp with promise or peril you can't tell which. Hills rise steeper now, hinting at mountains beyond, and the Parthians push harder, their whips cracking less as motivation than rhythm. You bond with your fellow captives over shared misery. A Sicilian engineer sketches escape plans in the dirt, erased before guards notice. A Thracian auxiliary teaches curse words in his tongue, expanding your vocabulary for when things get rough. Useful for yelling at nomads, he says with a wink. Laughter bubbles up again, defying the odds. You spot wildlife deer bounding away, eagles soaring high, and wonder if they're omens. The Parthians sacrifice a goat one evening, reading entrails under torchlight, their faces grave. You watch from afar, half curious, half mocking. If they predict we'll build them a villa, I'm demanding better rations. Finally, after what feels like an eternity but is probably weeks, the outline of a city shimmers on the horizon, Margiana, or so the whispers say. Your heart races. This could be the end of the road or the start of something stranger. The vanished legionaries, you among them, step into the unknown, chains rattling like fate's dice. The air thickens with dust and destiny, and you brace for whatever comes next, a ghost in Parthia's grand game. You crest the final hill, muscles aching like they've been arguing with Jupiter himself, and there it sprawls before you, Margiana, an oasis city hugging the edge of the world, where the desert sighs into green fields, watered by some miracle river that doesn't care about empires. The walls rise sturdy, baked brick, glowing in the late afternoon sun, dotted with watchtowers that squint eastward like they're expecting trouble, and they probably are, given the nomads who roam those endless steppes. Your Parthian escorts prod you forward, their voices a mix of commands and what sounds like casual chit-chat, as if herding Romans is just another day at the market. You shuffle through the gates, the air shifting from dusty heat to something cooler, laced with the scent of date palms and baking bread, real bread, not the rock-hard rations you've been gnawing on. Kids scamper alongside, wide-eyed at your foreign faces and clanking chains, one bold little tyke tossing a pebble that bounces off your shield with a harmless ping. You almost smile. It's the most normal thing you've seen in weeks. A reminder that even in enemy lands, kids are kids, always testing boundaries like mini gladiators in training. The canonical event unfolding here is the resettlement of Roman captives in Margiana, as hinted by ancient sources like Plutarch, who notes the Parthians' clever use of prisoners, rather than outright slaughter, turning Rome's loss into their gain, by stationing you far from any chance of rebellion or rescue. You're herded into a compound near the city's edge, a sprawl of mud brick barracks that look like they were built by folks who know a thing or two about fortifications, maybe even borrowing Roman tricks already. Guards unlock your chains with a clatter that echoes like freedom's tease, but you're not free, just repurposed. An officer, his beard oiled and armor gleaming with that annoying Parthian flair, gestures to the walls and mutters something translated roughly as, "Defend or die." You nod, rubbing your wrists, the skin raw and red like bad sunburn, from a day at the Circus Maximus gone wrong. Around you, comrades slump against walls, exchanging glances that say everything. We're alive, but what now? One guy, the Hispanic veteran from before, cracks wise under his breath. Great. We've gone from conquering the world to babysitting sand dunes, promotion of the century. You settle in, the routine kicking in faster than you'd like. Mornings start with the call of some exotic bird that sounds like it's gargling gravel, pulling you from fitful sleep on straw mats that itch worse than a beggar's tunic. Your assigned duties, patrolling the walls, repairing breaches where wind and raiders have nibbled away, using skills hammered into you back in Roman camps. The odd detail that sticks out is the food. They feed you barley porridge, laced with unfamiliar spices that burn your tongue at first, but grow on you, like that one weird uncle who tells bad jokes but always brings wine. Mixed in are chunks of dried fruit, sweet and chewy, a far cry from the bland legion rations, almost as if the Parthians are trying to win you over with their cuisine's subtle diplomacy via dinner. You spoon it up, savoring the warmth spreading through your belly, and think, if this is captivity, it's got better perks than some postings in Gaul. Laughter ripples through the barracks when a comrade pretends to choke on a particularly spicy bite, gasping. Tastes like revenge, hot and lingering. Historians still debate whether these Roman captives, fully integrated or plotted endless escapes, with some arguing the distance from Rome broke spirits, while others point to whispers of uprisings that fizzled like wet fireworks. You feel the pull both ways. Part of you scans the horizon for a way west, mapping stars that don't align with home. But another part adapts, learning bits of Parthian lingo from guards who aren't all bad. One even shares a flask of date wine during a quiet watch, its sweetness cutting the night's chill. You stand on the ramparts at dusk, wind whispering through your hair like forgotten prayers, watching caravans snake in from the east, laden with silks and spices that make your nose twitch. Camels groan under their loads, bells tinkling like distant laughter, and you wonder about those distant lands, rumors swirl of kingdoms beyond, where rivers run with gold and warriors fight on horseback like gods. A fellow legionary joins you, pointing to a fading scar on his arm from Carrhae. Think we'll ever get matching tattoos for this mess? Survived Parthia barely. You snort, the joke lightening the weight of the unknown as stars prick the sky like tiny arrowheads. Days blend into a rhythm of work and wary coexistence. You help build a new tower, your engineering know-how, earning grudging nods from Parthian overseers who mutter about Roman ingenuity like it's a curse and a compliment rolled into one. The air hums with hammers and shouts, dust clouding your vision, but there's a strange satisfaction in creating something solid amid the chaos. Evenings bring communal fires, where stories flow freer than the wine tales of lost loves, epic battles, and that one time a comrade claims he wrestled a lion in the arena. Everyone knows it's exaggerated, but you let it slide for morale. Sensory overload hits during market days. The bazaar bursts with colors, vibrant rugs, gleaming copper pots, spices piled high in reds and golds that scent the air like a perfumer's dream. You barter a spare cloak for a handful of nuts, crunching them slowly, their saltiness a burst on your tongue that reminds you of olives from home, almost bringing tears if you dwell too long. You notice the blending starting subtly. A Roman dice game catches on with local kids who giggle as they lose pebbles instead of coins, while you pick up a Parthian card trick that involves bluffing like a senator, dodging taxes. One night, under a moon fat and yellow like overripe cheese, a storyteller spins yarns of eastern wonders, dragons guarding silk roads, cities of jade, and you lean in, hooked despite yourself. Bet those dragons breathe fire hotter than this porridge, quips a comrade, and the group chuckles, the sound echoing off the walls like a small rebellion. But beneath the levity, tension simmers. Guards watch closer when nomad scouts appear on the horizon, shadows flitting like ghosts, and your handed bows, Parthian bows, curved and deadly, forcing you to unlearn Roman ways. You draw one back, the string taut against your fingers, releasing an arrow that thuds into a target with satisfying force. It's empowering, this shift, but bittersweet, like trading your gladius for a stranger's blade. As seasons turn, the green fields browning under relentless sun, you feel Margiana weaving into your bones. Friendships form across lines. A Parthian smith teaches you to forge arrowheads with a twist that makes them whistle in flight, his hammer ringing like temple bells. You share a meal of flatbread and goat cheese, tangy and crumbly, washed down with fermented milk that fizzes on your tongue like a mild curse. Debates spark around the fire. Will Rome avenge Carrhae, or forget you like last year's vintage? You argue lightly, voices low to avoid ears, but the uncertainty gnaws like hunger. An unusual ritual catches your eye one dawn. Parthians daubing their horses with ochre symbols for protection. The red paste, sticky and earthy smelling, a custom you mimic on your own gear for luck. Blending worlds in quiet defiance. Jokes fly. If this paint works, I'll tattoo it on permanent good fortune. No refunds. You patrol the fringes, sand whispering underfoot, the vastness pressing in like an unspoken threat. Nomads raid sporadically, arrows hissing past like angry bees, and you fight back with a mix of Roman grit and Parthian guile, the clash of steel ringing sharp in the dry air. Victory tastes like dust and relief, shared over victory feasts where laughter masks the homesickness. But whispers grow of further east opportunities, dangers, and you wonder if this outpost is just a pause, not an end. The wind carries scents of unknown spices, teasing horizons beyond, as you stand watch, a vanished Roman in a borrowed life. You wake to the distant rumble of a caravan, departing Margiana at dawn, the bells on the camels tinkling like a half-remembered tune from a Roman festival, pulling you from dreams of home where the Tiber flows lazy and familiar. Years have slipped by in this outpost, how many? You've lost count, the seasons blending like poorly mixed paint on a fresco. Your hands are calloused now from wielding Parthian tools, your accent a muddle of Latin and local dialects that makes the merchants chuckle when you haggle for bread. But whispers stir the air like dust devils, orders from the capital, something about redeploying the Iron Men further east, where threats brew hotter than midday sand. You're rounded up again, not with chains this time, but with promises of better pay and fewer nomad raids. Parthian pragmatism at its finest, treating you like assets rather than prisoners. You sling your pack over your shoulder, the weight familiar as an old scar, and join the column snaking out the gates, the city fading behind like a mirage. The wind carries scents of sage and distant rain, teasing your nose with hints of wilder lands ahead, and you mutter to a comrade, "If we're marching to guard silkworms next, I'm demanding a raise in Cocoon's softest armor ever." He snickers, the joke easing the knot in your gut, because who knows what waits beyond these horizons. The road east unspools like a thread from some god's loom, dusty and endless. cutting through valleys where rivers glint like silver veins in the earth. You're part of a mixed force now, Romans like you, Parthian regulars, even a few captured Greeks who gripe about everything from the food to the flies. Camels groan under loads of supplies, their humps swaying like drunken sailors, and you learn to ride one, the beast's lurching gait making you seasick on dry land. Nights around the fire, stories flow freer, spiced with that fermented milk drink that fizzes on your tongue like a mild rebellion against sobriety. You share tales of Carrhae, the defeat softened by time into legend, while Parthians boast of their horse archers, demonstrating feints with sticks that whistle through the air. An odd detail emerges during one halt. A merchant joins your camp, his wagon creaking under bolts of silk, so fine it slips through your fingers like water, dyed in colors you've never seen, crimson reds from crushed bugs, he claims, harvested from distant trees. You touch it, the smoothness a luxury amid the grit, and quip to the group, if Crassus had worn this instead of ambition, maybe he'd have slid right out of that trap. Laughter echoes, low and warm, a balm against the chill creeping in as you push deeper into Central Asia. Historians still debate whether Roman captives like you were fully dispersed or kept as cohesive units, with some arguing the Parthians fragmented groups to prevent revolt, while others suggest elite squads were preserved for their tactical edge against eastern foes. You feel the shift yourself. No longer just guards, you're drilled in new formations, blending Roman testudo with Parthian mobility, shields locking like scales on a fish, while archers loose from behind. It's awkward at first, your legs protesting the unfamiliar steps. But it works in skirmishes against raiders who dart like shadows on horseback. You clash in a narrow pass one afternoon, arrows hissing past your ears like angry whispers, your shield arm burning as you hold the line. Victory comes swift, the enemy scattering like leaves in wind, and you mop sweat from your brow, tasting salt mixed with dust, the adrenaline buzzing like bees in your veins. A comrade claps your back, grinning. That fish scale trick? We're like a swimming fortress nomads probably think we're sea monsters lost in the desert. You laugh, the absurdity lightening the load, but it sticks with you, this hybrid way of war, a bridge between worlds you never asked to cross. The canonical event that echoes through your journey is the Parthian relocation strategy post-Carrhae, where survivors were funneled to fringes like Margiana and beyond, repurposed as border enforcers in a vast empire, always hungry for skilled hands. You see it play out in real time. Villages along the route greet you warily, their mud huts clustered like wary animals, elders offering flatbread baked on hot stones that crunch warmly between your teeth. You chew slowly, savoring the faint char, a taste of stability amid the flux. Further east, the landscape morphs, steppes rolling wide and green, dotted with herds of wild horses that thunder past like living storms, their manes whipping in the breeze. You camp near one such herd, the ground vibrating under your blanket as they graze nearby, and you watch them under starlight, envying their freedom. A Parthian guard shares a pipe of herbal smoke, its earthy puff clouding your thoughts, loosening tongues for deeper talks. Rumors of kingdoms farther on, where walls rise from stone and armies clash over silk roads that pulse like arteries of trade. Days stretch into weeks, the sun, a relentless companion, baking your skin to leather, cracks forming like maps of forgotten rivers. You ford streams cold as melted snow, the water shocking your calves, splashing up to soak your tunic in a refreshing chill that makes you gasp. Fish dart silver in the currents, and you spear one for supper, its flesh flaky and mild over the fire, seasoned with wild herbs that burst tangy on your palate. Jokes fly as you eat. This fish tastes better than legion rations, probably because it didn't march here from Rome. The group chuckles, bellies full, spirits buoyed against the uncertainty. You learn local customs, piecemeal, a nod instead of a salute. Tea brewed from bitter leaves that stain your teeth but sharpen your mind, sipped from clay cups, warm in your hands. An open debate simmers around the fires. Did any Romans escape westward, or were all funneled east like you, vanishing into assimilation? You argue lightly, voices rising with the smoke. No clear answers, but plenty of speculation. The stars overhead, indifferent witnesses. Pushing onward, mountains loom like jagged teeth on the horizon, snow-capped even in summer, their shadows cooling the air as you ascend winding paths slick with loose gravel. Your breath comes shorter, lungs protesting the thinness, but the views stun valleys, unfolding below like crumpled scrolls, rivers threading silver through green. You pause at a pass, wind howling through like a chorus of ghosts, carrying scents of pine and distant smoke. Below, a warlord's camp sprawls, tents flapping like wings, and whispers reach you, alliances shifting, Romans like you traded or loaned as mercenaries. It's unsettling, this commodification, but survival whispers acceptance. You descend, boots crunching stone, heart pounding with the drop, and enter a new chapter, the east unfolding mysterious and vast. Nights grow colder, blankets shared for warmth, snores mingling with the crackle of fires. You dream of Rome less now, the memories fading like ink and rain, replaced by this endless road. A comrade jokes one evening, poking the embers. If we go any farther east, we'll fall off the map. Hope there's a tavern at the edge. You smile, the humor, a thread holding you together as the world expands, pulling you toward fates unwritten. The trail levels into plains where grass sways waist-high, whispering secrets as you pass. Insects chirping a ceaseless symphony. You spot ruins half buried, ancient stones etched with symbols you can't read. A reminder of empires, risen and fallen before Rome even dreamed of glory. Touching one, the rock cool and rough under your fingers, you wonder about those who carved it. Did they too march unwilling? The group presses on, the pace steady, your legs aching but strong from the trek. Water from springs tastes mineral sharp, quenching thirst with a bite that wakes you fully. As dusk paints the sky in oranges and purples, you camp amid wildflowers, their petals soft as silk scraps, scent sweet and fleeting. Stories turn to the future. What if you settle here, marry local, raise kids who speak a tongue mixed like stew? The thought tugs, bittersweet, as stars emerge, pinpricks of light in the velvet dark. You lie back, the ground hard but familiar, and drift off to the soft hum of wind, the east calling softly, insistently. You trudge onward through the vast steppes, the grass whispering against your legs like 1,000 tiny secrets, the wind carrying a chill that bites deeper than any Parthian arrow ever did, reminding you that the world keeps expanding, pulling you farther from the familiar clatter of Roman forums. The caravan you're part of now, less a prisoner train and more a ragtag mercenary outfit, winds through valleys where wild goats scamper up rocky slopes, their bleats echoing like mocking laughter at your endless journey. You've traded your full legion gear for lighter Parthian tunics, the fabric rough but breathable, wicking away sweat that smells of dust and desperation mixed with the faint, herbal tang of the teas you've grown accustomed to brewing over campfires. Nights blur into days, the sun, a relentless overseer baking the earth until cracks form like veins in marble, and you find yourself scanning ancient scrolls traded from passing merchants, their papyrus crinkling under your fingers like dry leaves, inked with characters that twist like vines, Chinese, they say, from empires even farther east where silk flows like rivers and dragons guard the horizons. You squint at one such record, the words translated haltingly by a Greek interpreter who's hitched a ride with your group, his voice low and conspiratorial, as if sharing forbidden wine. Tales of battles in lands called Han, where foreign warriors wield shields in ways no nomad ever dreamed. The canonical event that pulses through these yellowed pages is the Battle of Ziji in 36 BCE, where Han dynasty forces clashed with the Xiongnu chieftain Ziji near the Talas River in what's now Kazakhstan, a showdown that pitted Chinese crossbows against a fortress built with uncanny stonework, unusual for steppe nomads, who usually pitch tents faster than you could say, Ave Caesar. You imagine it unfolding as the scroll describes, Han generals advancing under a sky heavy with dust clouds, their armies a sea of banners fluttering like crimson waves, facing off against Zizi's ragtag alliance that included a bizarre unit of soldiers locked in a fish-scale formation shields, overlapping tight as scales on a serpent, advancing slow and unyielding, a tactic that screams Roman testudo to anyone who's drilled in the legions. The air would have thrummed with the twang of bowstrings, arrows hissing like angry serpents, while these mystery troops held the line, their boots digging into the gritty soil, grunts muffled behind interlocking shields that gleamed dully in the harsh light. Gigi's fortress loomed massive, walls hewn from stone, in a style that baffled the Han scouts, too solid, too engineered for horse-riding warlords who preferred hit and run over siegecraft. You picture the chaos. Han catapults hurling boulders that thud against those walls with bone, jarring cracks, flames licking up from fire arrows, the smell of burning pitch thick and acrid, choking the air like overcooked mutton left on the spit too long. You lean back against a wagon wheel during a midday halt, the wood creaking under your weight, as the interpreter unrolls more of the chronicle, his finger tracing lines that detail how these foreign fighters braced the ramparts, their formation, a living shell that repelled wave after wave until the Han overwhelmed them with sheer numbers, crossbow bolts punching through gaps like insistent knocks on a tavern door. Most were cut down or executed post-battle, but whispers in the text hint at survivors carted east as prizes, resettled in frontier outposts where their strange ways might blend into the landscape like misplaced spices in a stew. The odd detail that jumps out, making you raise an eyebrow higher than a senator spotting a bargain in the forum, is the description of these troops' helmets crested in a style not local, perhaps echoing Roman plumes, though the scroll calls them barbarian caps, with feathers that fluttered like startled birds in the wind, an accessory that could have been looted from your own lost comrades or crafted in imitation, turning heads on the battlefield like a gladiator showing up in a toga instead of armor. You chuckle softly to yourself, imagining one of those warriors pausing mid-fight to adjust a wonky crest. Hold the line, lads. My feather's gone sideways again. Can't charge looking like a disheveled peacock. Historians still debate whether these fish-scale soldiers were truly remnants of Crassus's captured legions, trickled east through Parthian trades and mercenary deals, or just Central Asian mercenaries aping foreign tactics picked up along the Silk Road, with no direct Roman blood in the mix. You ponder it over a shared meal of flatbread, slathered in tangy yogurt that cools your tongue after the spicy herbs, the flavors mingling sharp and creamy, a far cry from the plain rations of your early marches. The debate feels alive around the fire, comrades arguing in hushed tones, some swearing by the testudo link, others dismissing it as coincidence, like finding two coins from the same mint in different pockets. You join in lightly, poking the embers with a stick that sparks like tiny fireworks. If they were us, bet they complained about the food too. Where's the garum? This Han slop needs more fish sauce. The group snickers, the joke cutting the tension, but it lingers. This thread connecting your vanished brothers to battles half a world away, where Roman discipline might have echoed in the clash of unfamiliar swords. As the caravan creaks forward again, wheels groaning over rutted paths that jolt your bones like a bad chariot ride, you tuck the scroll away, its weight light, but its implications heavy, pulling you deeper into the mystery. The landscape shifts subtly rivers, widening into lazy flows, where fish leap silver in the sun, their splashes a rhythmic counterpoint to the steady plod of feet. You dip your hands in one such stream during a break, the water icy and invigorating, washing away trail dust that cakes your skin like forgotten makeup from a theater mask. Birds wheel overhead, their cries sharp and alien, diving for insects that buzz annoyingly around your ears, and you swat at them absent-mindedly, thoughts drifting to those Han chronicles. What if your path mirrors theirs? A slow drift eastward into alliances with warlords like Gigi, ambitious nomads, hungry for Roman know-how to build fortresses that defy the steppes. You spot a distant rider on the horizon, silhouette hazy in the heat shimmer, and wonder if he's a scout for such a force, carrying invitations or threats wrapped in silk scrolls. The air grows thicker with humidity as you near greener zones, scents of blooming wildflowers, sweet and heady, mixing with the earthy musk of damp soil underfoot. Evenings bring cooler breezes that rustle tent flaps like whispered secrets, and you huddle with the group, sharing pipes of mild tobacco that puff smooth and woody, loosening stories of home that blend with eastern myths, dragons coiling around mountains, emperors in jade palaces. You tease a comrade who's grown a beard rivaling a philosopher's, looking Parthian there. Mate, if you start quoting poetry, I'm calling you the lost Virgil of the steppes. He laughs, the sound warm against the crackling fire, flames dancing shadows across faces etched with the miles. But the chronicles nag at you, their accounts of those foreign troops fighting bravely, their fish-scale wall crumbling under Han assault, survivors vanishing into resettlement like ghosts into mist. You lie back on your blanket, the ground lumpy but yielding, staring at stars that wheel in unfamiliar patterns, pondering the threads of fate that might tie your march to theirs. Sleep comes slow, dreams fragmented with shields locking and arrows raining, the east calling insistent as a siren's song, pulling you toward fortresses and formations that echo Rome in the strangest ways. The night deepens, crickets chirping a lullaby, and you drift off, the mystery unfolding like a scroll in the wind. You squint at the faded ink on that Han scroll, the parchment crinkling softly under your fingers like old leaves rustling in a gentle breeze as the caravan halts by a shallow stream where the water babbles over smooth stones. its cool trickle inviting you to dip your dusty feet and let the chill seep into your weary bones. The air hangs heavy with the scent of wild thyme crushed under wagon wheels, mixing with the smoky tang of last night's campfire embers, still glowing faintly in the dawn light. You've been pondering those Chinese chronicles non-stop, the words painting pictures of battles that feel eerily familiar, like echoes of your own drills back in Roman camps, where shields locked tight against imaginary arrows. Now, as you trace the characters describing that fish-scale formation, a shiver runs down your spine, not from the morning chill, but from the uncanny resemblance to the testudo, that tortoise shell tactic where you and your comrades huddled under overlapping shields, advancing like a slow, armored beast that could shrug off hailstorms of projectiles. It's as if someone copied your playbook and shipped it east, turning your Roman grit into a Central Asian surprise. The canonical event that ties it all together is the Roman development and use of the testudo formation, honed during sieges like the one at Alesia under Caesar in 52 BCE, where legions formed these impenetrable shells to approach Gallic walls, shields raised overhead and interlocked like tiles on a villa roof, deflecting stones and arrows while engineers worked their magic below. You remember practicing it endlessly, the clank of metal on metal ringing in your ears like a blacksmith symphony, sweat dripping down your back as you held position, muscles burning under the weight, the air thick with grunts, and the metallic scent of oiled armor. In those drills, the testudo wasn't just a tactic. It was survival incarnate, a moving fortress that turned vulnerable men into an unbreakable whole, shuffling forward step by synchronized step, the ground vibrating under your sandals, as if the earth itself approved. Now, imagining it repurposed in Gigi's standoff against the Han, you picture those foreign troops, maybe your lost kin locking shields in that same deliberate rhythm, the formation gleaming under the stepsun, edges sharp as a gladius blade, holding back waves of crossbow fire that whistled past like angry hornets. You lean against a rock by the stream, the stone cool and mossy against your palm, watching minnows dart silver in the clear water, their scales flashing like tiny mirrors, and it hits you how perfectly that fish scale label fits the testudo overlapping layers that shimmer and shift, protecting the soft underbelly while presenting a hard, unified front. The unusual detail that makes you pause, mid-sip from your water skin, where the liquid tastes faintly of minerals and far-off mountains, is how the Han texts describe these soldiers signaling with what sounds like Roman-style trumpets, their blasts echoing across the battlefield in short, sharp bursts that coordinated advances, not the deep horns of nomads or the gongs of eastern armies, but something bracier, more commanding, like the tuba calls that once rallied you to formation back in Parthia. It's odd, this auditory echo traveling continents, turning a simple sound into a breadcrumb of mystery, as if the ghosts of Carrhae were tooting their own horns from beyond the horizon. Literally, in this case, making you wonder if some legionary smuggled his instrument all the way east, polishing it secretly during marches, its gleam a hidden piece of home. Historians still debate whether the fish-scale formation in those Chinese records was a direct import from Roman captives, adapted through Parthian middlemen and mercenary wanderings, or just a coincidental evolution of tactics among Central Asian warriors who might have seen similar shield walls in skirmishes along trade routes, with no need for actual Romans in the mix. You mull it over as the caravan resumes, the wagons creaking like old bones protesting movement, your boots sinking slightly into the soft earth, still damp from overnight dew that clings to grass blades like tiny jewels. The debate feels personal now, as if arguing over your own shadow. Did your brother's knowledge drift east like pollen on the wind, pollinating foreign armies? Or was it all parallel invention, two cultures stumbling onto the same shield trick independently, like two cooks discovering garlic at the same time and claiming it as their secret ingredient? Either way, the similarity nags at you, a puzzle piece that almost fits, teasing your mind during the monotonous plod. The rhythmic thud of feet syncing with your heartbeat, the air warming as the sun climbs higher, baking the landscape into golden hues that shimmer like mirages. You joke with a comrade riding beside you on a sway-backed mule, its ears twitching at flies buzzing lazily around. If our testudo's gone fish scale over there, bet those Han generals thought they were fighting a giant carp, slippery, scaly, and hard to hook. He chuckles, the sound low and rumbling like distant thunder, easing the tension in your shoulders as you both imagine the confusion. Shields clashing with a metallic ring that echoes across valleys, the formation inching forward while enemies pepper it futilely. Another quip slips out later, during a brief shade break under a lone acacia tree, whose leaves rustle softly like pages turning in a forbidden book. Wonder if they added Roman flair, maybe a centurion yelling, "Hold the line," in broken Xiongnu, sounding like a tourist ordering wine in a foreign tavern. The group snickers, wiping sweat from brows with sleeves stiff from salt. The humor, a light breeze cutting through the heat, but it underscores the eerie parallel, making the ancient texts feel alive, breathing possibilities into your journey. As evening falls, the sky streaking purple and orange like a painter's careless swipe, you camp near a cluster of boulders, worn smooth by winds that whisper through cracks, carrying faint echoes of far-off herds lowing in the dusk. The fire crackles, sparks dancing upward like fleeting stars, and you poke at it with a stick, the wood popping sharply, releasing a woody aroma that mingles with the savory scent of stew, bubbling in a pot root vegetables and mystery meat simmered with herbs that tingle on your tongue, warm and grounding after the day's march. You savor a spoonful, the broth rich and slightly spicy, chasing away the chill settling in your bones as night deepens, stars pricking the velvet sky one by one. The fish scale mystery lingers in conversations, voices hushed around the flames, debating adaptations. Did the formation evolve with Eastern bows, or stay pure, Roman, a tortoise, plodding through alien sands? You drift off under your blanket, the ground hard but familiar, the night's quiet broken only by a distant owl hoot, its call mournful yet soothing, pulling you into sleep where shields lock in dreams, scales glinting under foreign suns. The next dawn breaks soft and pink, mist hugging the ground like a shy embrace, and you rise stretching kinks from your back, the air crisp with promise or peril you can't tell yet. The caravan stirs, pots clanging as breakfast porridge steams, its oaty warmth fogging the cool morning, and you eat quickly, the grains sticking to your ribs like loyal friends. Pushing on, the path climbs gently, pebbles crunching underfoot with a satisfying grit, leading toward ridges where winds howl playfully, tugging at your cloak like mischievous spirits. You spot wildflowers dotting the verge, petals vibrant against the green, their honeyed scent wafting on the breeze, a sweet counterpoint to the earthy plod. The testudo's shadow follows you, a tactical ghost bridging empires, making each step feel like closing a gap in history's vast tapestry, threads woven from shields and scrolls alike. A final joke bubbles up as you crest a hill, the view unfolding endless. If we're the original fish scales, hope the Han didn't bread and fry us. Talk about a crispy end to the Legion. Smiles spread, lightening the load. As the east beckons, mysteries unfolding, slow as dawn. You crest a rugged ridge under a sky, bruised with gathering clouds, the wind whipping your cloak, like an impatient tailor, tugging at loose threads, carrying the faint, metallic tang of impending rain that mixes with the earthy musk of steppe grasses trampled under countless hooves before yours. The Talus River glimmers below, a serpentine ribbon of silver cutting through the valley, its waters rushing with a low roar that drowns out the creak of wagons and the mutterings of your mercenary band. Now, a motley crew of weathered Romans, Parthian handlers, and local scouts who've joined for the promise of coin or conquest. You've been on this endless trail for what feels like moons, your boots caked with mud that squelches underfoot like overripe fruit, each step pulling you deeper into Central Asia's wild heart, where empires clash like thunderheads and warlords rise like sudden storms. Gizi's fortress looms ahead, a hulking mass of stone and timber perched on a rise overlooking the river, its walls jagged and imposing, built with a solidity that screams foreign influence too precise for nomadic hands, accustomed to tents that fold away at dawn's first light. You squint through the haze, spotting banners, flapping defiantly in the breeze, their colors faded but bold, and you can't shake the feeling that this place holds echoes of your own lost legion, a bastion where Roman know-how might have been hammered into every mortar joint. The canonical event that defines this standoff is the Siege of Ziji in 36 BCE, where Han Chinese armies under General Ganyan Shou and Chen Tang besieged the Xiongnu chieftain Ziji's stronghold near the Talus River, a brutal clash that marked the westernmost reach of Han expansion and saw innovative defenses crumble under relentless assault. You imagine arriving just in time for the buildup, your group absorbed into Ziji's forces as hired muscle, the air thick with tension as scouts report Han banners on the horizon, a sea of crimson and gold, advancing like a slow tide. The fortress buzzes with activity, men hauling timbers to reinforce gates that groan under the weight, archers stringing bows with sinew that twangs sharp in the crisp air, the scent of pitch, boiling in cauldrons, wafting hot and sticky, ready to pour on any fool who scales the walls. You take your post on the ramparts, the stone cool and rough under your palms, overlooking the river where fords churn white with foam, and you drill with the others in that familiar fish-scale formation, shields, locking with a satisfying clunk that resonates in your chest like a heartbeat. The unusual detail that catches your eye amid the chaos is Ziji's personal banner, embroidered with a stylized eagle that looks suspiciously Roman wings spread wide, talons clutching what might be a thunderbolt, perhaps looted from Carrhae spoils, or copied from captured standards, fluttering overhead like a mocking nod to your origins, turning what should be a symbol of home into a warlord's quirky mascot. You hunker down as the Han approach, their drums booming deep and rhythmic across the valley, vibrating through the ground like an earthquake's prelude, while crossbowmen line up in neat ranks, their weapons clicking as bolts are loaded with mechanical precision. The first volley hisses in, arrows thudding against your overlapping shields like hail on a tiled roof. the impact jarring your arms but holding firm, the air filling with the acrid smell of fletching singed by friction. You advance in testudo style to plug a breach, feet shuffling in unison over gravel that crunches like fresh-baked bread under a boot, sweat trickling down your back in salty rivulets that sting old scars. Gigi himself paces the walls, his voice barking orders in a guttural tongue, his armor clanking like loose change in a beggar's cup. A man whose ambitions built this stone behemoth from nomadic roots, blending local cunning with borrowed tactics that feel ripped from your legion drills. Jokes ripple through your ranks to cut the fear. One comrade mutters behind his shield, "If this fish scale holds, we should patent it. Call it the Gigi Special." Comes with a side of nomad surprise. You stifle a chuckle, the humor a thin veil over the pounding of your heart, as another wave crashes against the formation. Bolts glancing off with sparks that flicker like fleeting fireflies. Historians still debate whether Roman captives truly contributed to Gigi's defenses, their engineering skills shaping the fortress's uncharacteristically sturdy walls and moats, or if it was all local innovation boosted by Silk Road exchanges, with no need for actual legionaries sweating in the mix. You ponder it during a brief lull, crouched behind battlements as the sun dips low, painting the river in bloody reds that reflect off the water like spilled wine from a clumsy feast. The debate feels alive in the stone under your fingers, etched with chisel marks that could be Roman-trained or just skilled imitation, the air cooling as evening creeps in, bringing a chill that seeps into your bones like doubt. You share a hurried meal of dried meat and flatbread, the chew tough and fibrous, with a hint of preserved herbs that burst tangy on your tongue, washed down with river water that tastes faintly of minerals and upstream silt. Conversations turn to home, voices low against the distant Han campfires, twinkling like fallen stars, comrades swapping stories of lost loves and tavern brawls to keep morale afloat. Another quip slips out as you wipe your mouth. Bet those Han think our walls magic little do they know. It's just Roman stubbornness mixed with bad mortar, like building a villa on a hangover. Snickers spread, easing the knot in your gut, but the siege presses on, catapults creaking as they launch flaming projectiles that arc through the night sky like shooting stars gone wrong, exploding against the walls with roars that shake the earth. The assault intensifies at dawn, the air thick with fog that clings damp and clammy to your skin, muffling sounds until a sudden barrage shatters the quiet, boulders smashing into parapets with bone-rattling thuds that send dust cascading like fine flour from a baker's sieve. You rally in the courtyard, shields up as breaches widen, the smell of splintered wood sharp and resinous, mingling with the coppery tang of blood from the first casualties. Gigi's men fight fiercely, arrows loosed from slits with whizzing precision, but the Han are relentless, ladders clattering against stone as climbers swarm like ants on a honeyed crust. You thrust your spear through gaps, the wood slick in your grip, grunts echoing in the melee as blades clash with sparks and screams. The fortress holds for days, a testament to its design, but cracks spiderweb through the walls like veins on an old man's hand, morale fraying as supplies dwindle, rations turning to watery gruel that sloshes in your bowl, bland but sustaining. In quieter moments, you gaze at the river, its flow ceaseless and indifferent, fish leaping occasionally with silver flashes that mock the chaos above. A final joke bubbles up during a desperate repair shift, hammers ringing metallic If we survive this, let's open a tavern called The Fallen Eagle serving Han. Regrets and Roman resilience, no fortress required. Laughter's brief, but it fuels you as the end nears. The Han breaching at last, in a roar of triumph and despair, the air choking with smoke from torched timbers that crackle and pop like festival fireworks gone awry. Survivors, like you, are rounded up, the ground littered with debris that crunches underfoot, the river now a barrier crossed in chains, its waters lapping cold against your legs as you're ferried east. Gigi's head on a pike serves as a grim trophy, but your thoughts drift to the formation that almost turned the tide, a Roman ghost in Asian garb. The journey continues, valleys giving way to plains where winds howl lonely, pulling you toward uncertain fates in Han lands. The fortress, a fading silhouette against the horizon, its stones silent witnesses to blended worlds and buried secrets. You jolt awake in the back of a rickety cart, rumbling over uneven ground, the wooden slats creaking beneath you like an old man's complaints after too much wine, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and distant wood smoke that clings to your clothes like a persistent memory from last night's campfire. Your head throbs faintly from the jostle, and you rub your eyes, blinking at the landscape unfolding around you, rolling hills dotted with scrubby bushes, their leaves rustling softly in a breeze that whispers cool against your skin, promising a break from the steppes' relentless bake. You've been herded east after the fall of Gigi's fortress, one of the few survivors spared the Han's swift justice, perhaps because your foreign face and sturdy build marked you as more curiosity than threat, or maybe they saw value in your tales of distant lands told haltingly around interrogation fires. The Han soldiers march you onward, their armor clinking in rhythmic unison, banners fluttering crimson overhead like bloodied clouds, leading toward frontier outposts where prisoners like you get resettled, absorbed into the Empire's vast machinery like grains of sand in a desert storm. You glance at comrades fewer now, faces gaunt but resilient, and mutter under your breath, from Roman eagle to Han workhorse, talk about a career pivot. Next stop, plowing fields or guarding goats. Hope the benefits include silk underwear. The journey drags on through valleys where rivers meander lazy and wide, their waters murmuring over pebbles smooth as polished marble, reflecting the sky in fractured blues that remind you of Mediterranean seas you'd sail as a younger man, before Carrhae turned your world upside down. You ford one such stream, the cold rush soaking your sandals and sending shivers up your legs like tiny electric jolts, fish nibbling curiously at your toes before darting away in silver flashes. Han guards prod you forward with spears that glint menacingly, but not without a grudging respect. They've seen your kind fight, after all, that fish-scale holdout, buying Gigi precious hours. Nights camp under stars that wheel in unfamiliar patterns, the air cooling to a crisp bite that nips at your exposed skin, fires crackling with sparks that dance upward like fleeing spirits. You huddle close, sharing bowls of millet porridge laced with unfamiliar greens that taste bitter yet nourishing, the steam warming your face as you spoon it up slowly, savoring the warmth against the chill. Stories swap in low voices. One Han soldier, loosening up over shared rice wine that burns sweet down your throat, spins yarns of emperors in jade palaces, while you counter with tales of Roman aqueducts defying gravity, earning wide-eyed nods and a joke from your side. Our water flows uphill, yours probably bows to the dragon gods first, Bet that's why it tastes like wisdom here. Deeper into Han territory, the land softens into fertile plains where rice paddies stretch like mirrored quilts under the sun. Workers bent in the fields splashing water that smells of mud and growth, their straw hats bobbing like floating lilies. Villages cluster, modest and tidy. Thatched roofs sloping gentle over walls of rammed earth that feel solid under your tentative touch during brief halts. Locals stare openly, whispering behind hands at your taller frame, your hooked nose and curly beard that stand out like a gladius in a silk sheath, features that spark murmurs of Dakin ghosts, the Han term for distant Romans, ghosts from the west who've wandered too far. You arrive at last in Legion, a frontier outpost tucked in Gansu province, its name rolling off tongues like a half-forgotten echo of Legion. The air here drier, scented with dust and blooming wildflowers that nod purple and yellow along dirt paths. Assigned to guard duties or farm labor, you settle into barracks of packed clay, the floors cool and firm underfoot, a far cry from nomadic tents, but worlds from Roman stone. The canonical event that roots you here is the Han resettlement of Gizi's captured foreign troops around 36 BCE, as recorded in the Book of Han by Bangu, where survivors were planted in outposts like Lechian to bolster borders against raiders, their strange ways blending into local life like ink in water, forming communities that whispered of Western origins for generations. You explore the village during off hours, streets narrow and winding, lined with low houses where smoke curls lazy from chimneys, carrying the aroma of steaming dumplings stuffed with chives and meat that burst savory on your tongue when a kind elder shares one, her wrinkled hands pressing it warm into yours. Kids scamper about, their laughter tinkling like wind chimes, pointing at your unusual features, fairer hair on some descendants, eyes shaded blue or green in rare cases, noses aquiline like yours, that fuel local lore of Roman bloodlines, persisting through intermarriage. Tales spun around evening fires, where tea brews strong and tannic, sipped from clay cups that warm your palms. The odd detail that stands out, making you pause mid-stride on a dusty lane, is the village's ancient name in records, sometimes transliterated as Legion or Legion, a linguistic quirk that echoes Alexandria or Roman camps, perhaps a mangled memory of captured soldiers naming their new home after lost comrades, turning heads among scholars who pore over dusty scrolls like detectives chasing cold cases. You chuckle to yourself, imagining the first Roman here grumbling. Called it Lechian? Sounds like Legion after too much rice wine. Close enough, lads. Plant the standard and call it conquered. Historians still debate whether Lechian's residents truly descend from Crassus's lost legionaries, their DNA markers hinting at Western traces amid Han stock, or if it's all coincidence amplified by Silk Road mingling, with no direct Roman lineage, but plenty of cultural borrowing to spice the stew. You ponder it over communal meals of noodle soup, slurped noisy and hot, broth rich with ginger that tingles your lips, debating lightly with locals who claim Roman roots in jest. Our ancestors built roads straight as arrows. Yours probably got lost following dragons. Laughter erupts, easing the homesickness that tugs like a loose thread, but the rumors persist. Villagers embracing the legend with statues of armored figures erected in squares, their stone eyes staring westward as if waiting for eagles to return. You join festivals where drums thump deep and hypnotic, lanterns swaying like fireflies in the dusk, tasting sticky rice cakes, sweet with dates that melt on your tongue, blending in yet standing apart. Your presence, a living bridge between empires. Years fade in Lycian's rhythm, seasons cycling through harsh winters where snow blankets the ground, soft and silent, crunching underfoot like fresh bread crust, to springs bursting with blossoms that scent the air honeyed and fresh. You marry local, perhaps, raising kids with mixed features who play with wooden swords carved rough, yelling in a pidgin tongue that mixes Latin curses with Han proverbs, their laughter a balm against the exile's ache. Village life hums steady plowing fields where soil turns rich and loamy under your spade, the earth yielding crops that smell of promise when harvested, golden sheaves stacked high. Evenings bring quiet reflection by oil lamps flickering warm, shadows dancing on walls like forgotten memories, where you etch stories into clay tablets for posterity, hoping some future scribe deciphers the blend. A joke slips out one twilight, watching kids mimic your old drills, teaching testudo to toddlers. Next, they'll conquer the backyard. Watch out, stray cats, the mini legion marches, smiles spread, lightening the legacy's weight as Lycian whispers its secrets, a village where Rome's ghosts might linger in blood and bone, or perhaps just in tales told soft under starlit skies. You settle deeper into Lycian's quiet rhythm, the village wrapping around you like a well-worn blanket on a chilly evening, its dirt paths crunching softly under your feet as you wander past low clay houses where smoke curls lazy from chimneys, scenting the air with the warm, woody tang of burning juniper that tickles your nose and eases the ache of exile just a bit. Years have blurred here since that chaotic march from Zigi's fallen fortress, your hands now calloused from tilling fields where the soil turns rich and loamy under your spade, yielding crops of millet that sway golden in the breeze like forgotten standards from a distant legion. You've married into the community, your children scampering about with features that blend Roman sharpness with Han softness, perhaps a slightly hooked nose here, a curl of hair there that spark whispers among elders, sipping tea from steaming clay cups, the brew strong and bitter on their tongues, debating old tales over the crackle of a communal fire. But curiosity gnaws at you like a persistent itch, especially when villagers point to those unusual traits. Blondish hair glinting in the sun like stray wheat stalks, green eyes reflecting the jade hills, or fair skin that burns quicker under the relentless Gansu sun. These quirks fuel the legend, making you wonder if Crassus's blood truly flows in these veins, or if it's all Silk Road sleight of hand, mixing peoples like a bartender, shaking up exotic cocktails from far-flung ports. You find yourself digging into the puzzle one crisp autumn afternoon, the air sharp with the scent of fallen leaves crunching underfoot like brittle parchment, as you chat with a local healer who brews herbal remedies in a hut filled with drying bundles that rustle softly overhead, their earthy aroma grounding you amid the swirl of questions. She mentions ancient whispers of Dacian ancestors, Romans, to you, and how modern scholars have poked at the mystery with tools sharper than any gladius. DNA tests, unraveling bloodlines like unspooling thread from a loom. It started buzzing in the early 2002, when Chinese geneticists teamed up with outsiders to swab cheeks in Lycian, chasing markers that might scream Roman in the language of genes. Initial results sparked headlines hotter than a forge fire, claiming about 56% of sampled villagers carried European-like traits, pale eyes, fair hair, echoing Mediterranean roots, perhaps trickled east from those Carrhae captives. resettled here after Gigi's defeat. You imagine the excitement rippling through labs, scientists peering at screens, glowing with data strands, twisting like vines, piecing together a puzzle that could rewrite maps of ancient wanderings. But hold on, because the plot thickens like overcooked porridge later studies. Even as recent as last year, in 2024, poured cold water on the hype, testing 87 locals and finding only 3 with West Asian vibes. Nothing distinctly Roman or Mediterranean, more like echoes from Central Asian nomads who mingled along trade routes centuries ago. The canonical historical event that underpins this genetic chase is the 1957 paper by American sinologist Homer Dubs, a Roman city in ancient China, where he boldly proposed Lycian as a haven for Crassus's lost legionaries, drawing on Han records of foreign troops and linguistic twists like Lygian echoing legion, a theory that lit academic fires and drew tourists flocking like moths to a lantern, cameras clicking at villagers' unusual features as if snapping proof of time travel mishaps. You lean back against a sun-warmed wall, the stone rough and comforting under your palms, pondering how Dubs connected dots from Carrhae to the Talus River siege, suggesting survivors like you were carted here to guard Han borders, intermarrying and fading into the landscape like ink bleeding on wet silk. It's a romantic yarn, one that makes your heart tug with a mix of pride and skepticism, especially when you spot a kid with those green eyes splashing in a nearby stream, the water gurgling clear and cold over pebbles that glint like hidden coins. The odd detail that stands out, making you raise an eyebrow higher than a senator spotting a free lunch, is how some villagers swear by ancient Roman coins unearthed in local fields, bronze sestertii, stamped with emperors' profiles, perhaps traded along the Silk Road or dropped by actual wanderers, now hawked to wide-eyed visitors as legion loot, turning plow furrows into treasure hunts that have locals joking about digging up Julius Caesar's lost wallet next. Historians still debate whether these DNA discrepancies stem from flawed early sampling, maybe testing too few, or misinterpreting markers common in Silk Road melting pots, or if they hint at diluted Roman blood so thinned by generations. It's like chasing ghosts in a fog, with no smoking gene to pin the legend down definitively. You mull it over during evening gatherings, where lanterns flicker warm amber light across faces, shadows dancing like playful spirits, and you share rice wine that warms your belly with a gentle fire, its fruity bite chasing away the day's chill. Debates heat up mildly around the table, voices rising soft over clinking bowls of noodle soup, slurped noisy and hot, broth rich with ginger that tingles your lips like a secretive kiss. Some argue the European traces prove a kernel of truth. Others chalk it to Central Asian nomads like the Tocharians, blonde and blue-eyed folks who roamed these parts long before, blending bloodlines like artists mixing paints on a palette. You join in lightly, poking fun at the science. DNA tests? More like a family reunion gone wrong. Everyone shows up claiming to be related, but half are just crashing for the free food. Your comrades chuckle, the sound low and rumbling like distant thunder over the hills, easing the puzzle's knot in your chest. But the questions pile up like unanswered letters from home, each study contradicting the last, leaving you chasing shadows in Lycian's winding lanes where dogs bark lazy at passing carts, their wheels groaning over ruts like tired sighs. You watch villagers with those fair traits tending gardens, hands delving into soil, soft and fertile, pulling up roots that crunch fresh when bitten, wondering if Roman resilience hides in their sturdy builds, or if it's all romantic fog. Another joke slips out one twilight as you help mend a fence with woven reeds that bend flexible under your fingers. If we're Roman descendants, explain why I can't build a straight aqueduct mine leaks like a gossip in the baths. Laughter bubbles up again, light and freeing, but the genetic riddle lingers, a tease that promises answers, yet delivers more riddles, like a locked chest with a key that fits but doesn't turn. Even recent tests from 2024 debunk the direct link, showing traits consistent with Han and regional mixes, no grand Roman reveal, just everyday diversity from ancient trades and migrations. You sigh into the cooling night, stars pricking the sky like distant campfires, the air crisp with pine from nearby slopes, and drift toward sleep on your mat. The puzzle unsolved but oddly comforting, a thread connecting you to mysteries bigger than one man's march. The village quiets, lanterns dimming to embers that glow faint and red, the wind sighing through eaves like a storyteller pausing for breath, and you close your eyes, the genetic chase fading into dreams where bloodlines twist like rivers meeting the sea, questions unanswered, but the journey richer for them. You sift through the sun-baked soil of a windswept dig site in western China's Gansu province, your fingers brushing against gritty earth that clings to your skin like forgotten whispers from centuries past, the air dry and laced with the faint mineral tang of dust kicked up by a lazy breeze that rustles through sparse grasses like pages turning in an ancient scroll. You've traded the village rhythms of Lixian for this archaeological chase, drawn by tales of buried clues that might finally pin down the lost legion's trail, your boots crunching over pebbles worn smooth by time and forgotten feet, each step echoing the quiet frustration of historians who've poked these grounds before you. The sun beats down relentless, turning your shadow long and wavering across the excavation pits, where volunteers hunch with brushes and trowels, carefully scraping away layers that reveal pottery shards, glinting dull in the light. But nothing screams Roman, yet no gleaming helmets or inscribed tablets to shatter the silence. You kneel at one trench, the dirt cool under your knees despite the heat, and pick up a fragment of what looks like a coin, its edges worn soft, as if it spent millennia tumbling in pockets or pouches along the Silk Road. The faint imprint of a profile that could be an emperor or just a local knockoff, teasing your eyes with ambiguity. The canonical event that drives this subterranean hunt is the 1,989 discovery of Roman-style artifacts near the ancient city of Merv in Turkmenistan, once Parthian Margiana, where Soviet archaeologists unearthed lead sling, bullets and fragments of armor that some claim match Roman designs from the 1st century BCE, potentially left by Crassus's captives, repurposed as border guards, their metallic echoes buried under layers of sand and secrecy like a battlefield's last sigh. You imagine those digs unfolding under a similar sun, shovels biting into earth with metallic rings, unearthing items that sparked debates hotter than forge fires. Were these genuine legionary gear, hauled east after Carrhae and adapted for Parthian use, or just trade goods swapped along caravan routes? No soldiers attached? The air hums with the soft scrape of tools around you. Volunteers chatting in low tones about similar finds. Roman glass beads surfacing in Afghan tombs, their iridescent sheen preserved like frozen raindrops, or amphorae shards in Indian ports that hint at far-flung commerce, but not necessarily marching feet. You brush away more dirt from your coin-like find, feeling the faint ridges under your thumb, the metal warm from the sun, and wonder if it jingled in a Roman pouch before crossing deserts, or if it's a Han imitation minted to mimic exotic currency for prestige. Historians still debate whether these scattered artifacts prove Roman presence in Central Asia, their military engineering, leaving marks on fortifications like Gigi's stone walls, described in Han texts as unusually robust for nomads, or if they're mere echoes of trade networks that funneled goods without people, leaving no definitive footprints in the archaeological record. You stand up, stretching your back with a satisfying crack that echoes in the quiet pit, and wander to another section where a team excavates what might be a foundation, straight lines of packed earth, suggesting Roman-style planning, grids laid out with the precision of a centurion's map, but carbon dating teases, without confirming, results hovering around the right era, yet blurred by contamination from later layers. The odd detail that catches your breath, making you pause with trowel in hand, is a reported find from a 2015 dig in Uzbekistan. A small bronze figurine of a soldier with a crested helmet, its pose rigid and familiar, like a miniaturized legionary, unearthed near ancient trade posts, but lacking inscriptions to nail it as Roman. Perhaps a toy, a talisman, or a stray import that traveled farther than its maker ever dreamed, now sitting in a museum case under glass, staring back at curious eyes with silent mockery. You join the team for a midday break under a canvas shade that flaps gently in the wind like a sail on a becalmed ship, sharing flatbread baked fresh that morning, its crust flaky and warm against your fingers, slathered with a tangy yogurt dip that cools your tongue after the dry air's assault. Jokes ripple through the group to lighten the dig's tedium. One archaeologist quips, wiping sweat from his brow with a dusty sleeve, "If we find a Roman pizza oven next, I'm calling it Lost Legion. Went east for better takeout. Couldn't resist the spice routes." You chuckle softly, the sound blending with the distant call of a bird wheeling overhead, its shadow fleeting across the sight like a passing thought. But the frustration builds with each empty layer peeled back, tools clinking against stones that yield Han pottery, or Xiongnu arrowheads instead of eagle-embossed shields. Further afield, you recall reports from Kazakh sites near the Talas River, where 2022 excavations revealed wall foundations with mortared joints echoing Roman techniques, stones fitted tight, without the usual nomadic slapdash. But experts argue it's local evolution spurred by Parthian influence, not direct legionary sweat debates that rage in academic journals like Forum Brawls. No clear victor emerging from the ink-stained fray. Pushing deeper into the afternoon, the sun dipping lower and casting long shadows that stretch like fingers reaching for buried secrets. You help sieve through sifted soil, the mesh rattling with each shake, tiny fragments tumbling through like confetti from a parade long ended. Sensory overload hits when a volunteer unearths a rusted nail, its shape straight and sturdy, like those hammered in Roman camps, the iron flaking under gentle touch. But metallurgy tests whisper of regional forges, not Italian ones, leaving you grasping at straws finer than the sieves weave. You think back to coin hoards popped up in Chinese graves, sestertii mingled with Han Wuju, their bronze patina green with age, perhaps carried by merchants swapping tales and treasures, or dropped by wandering soldiers whose boots left no prints in the unforgiving sands. Another light-hearted jab slips out as you bag the find. This nail's probably from a Roman sandal lost it, running from bad Han cooking, straight into legend. Snickers spread, easing the dig's monotony, but the silence persists. No grand reveal bursting from the ground like a buried spring, just incremental teases that build the myth without solidifying it. As dusk creeps in, painting the sky in soft purples that bleed into the hills like spilled ink, you pack tools with the team. The clatter of metal on metal echoing faintly. The site's pits yawning empty, yet pregnant with possibility. Lanterns flicker to life, their warm glow pushing back the gathering dark, illuminating faces etched with dirt and determination. You sip water from a flask, the liquid cool and faintly metallic from the container, quenching thirst built from hours of hopeful labor. The archaeological trail in Central Asia remains frustratingly quiet. No inscribed helmets declaring property of Legio X. No maps etched on pottery charting. The lost march just whispers in the dirt that hint without howling, leaving you to ponder over a simple supper of rice and vegetables steamed soft, their flavors mild and comforting under the stars. Jokes fade into quiet reflection. Maybe the real treasure's the friends we dug up along the way. Nah, who'd bury those? But as night deepens, the wind sighing through the sight like a historian's sigh, you lie back on your mat, the ground hard but yielding, dreaming of breakthroughs that elude like shadows at dawn, the puzzle's pieces scattered across continents, waiting for the right hand to assemble them. You trudge across the sun-scorched expanse of a remote dig site in Uzbekistan, the ground beneath your boots, a crunchy mosaic of dry clay and shattered pottery shards that shift like loose teeth in an ancient jaw, the relentless wind whipping fine dust into your eyes, making them water with that gritty sting that feels like nature's way of saying mind your own business. You've left Lycian's cozy village rhythms behind, drawn by the siren call of buried secrets, hitching rides with archaeological teams who chatter excitedly about unearthing the lost legion's fingerprints in these forgotten corners of Central Asia, where empires once clashed and left their trash as timeless clues. The air shimmers with heat haze, distorting the horizon like a mirage, promising water that's never there. And you wipe sweat from your brow, tasting the salty tang on your lips mixed with the earthy flavor of the parched soil that clings to everything, turning your clothes into a second, dusty skin. Tents flap lazily in the breeze like half-hearted flags of surrender, their canvas scented faintly with canvas oil, and the sharp, metallic bite of excavation tools stacked nearby, ready to pry open history's reluctant vault. You drop to your knees at the edge of a trench, the dirt cool and compacted under your palms, like a reluctant handshake from the past, and start sifting through layers with a small brush, its bristles whispering softly against the sediment as fragments emerge, bits of rusted metal that could be anything from a nail to a buckle, their surfaces pitted and green with patina that flakes off under gentle pressure. The canonical event that fuels this obsessive hunt is the 1,952nd excavations at the ancient oasis city of Merv in Turkmenistan, where archaeologists uncovered remnants of Roman-style fortifications and artifacts from the Parthian era, including lead-sling bullets inscribed with Latin letters that some swear match those used by Crassus's legions, potentially left behind by captives like you who were forced to build and defend these eastern outposts, their echoes buried under centuries of sandstorms that howled like forgotten battle cries. You picture those digs unfolding in black and white newsreels, shovels biting into earth with rhythmic thuds, unearthing walls laid with the straight, methodical precision of Roman engineering, mortar joints tight as a centurion's grip, standing defiant against nomadic raids long after the builders had faded into local bloodlines. Historians still debate whether these finds prove a direct Roman hand in Central Asian strongholds, their disciplined construction techniques exported eastward via captive labor to shore up Parthian borders, or if they're just coincidental similarities born from Silk Road exchanges, where ideas flowed as freely as spices without needing actual legionaries swinging hammers. You ponder it while scraping away another layer, the tool's edge grating softly like nails on a chalkboard, but muffled by the dirt, revealing a shard of what looks like amphora pottery, curved and red-slipped, reminiscent of Roman wine vessels that might have carried vintage from Italian vineyards all the way here. Or perhaps a local copycat, crafted to impress traders passing through with exotic flair. The odd detail that makes you pause, brush hovering mid-stroke, is a peculiar bronze ring unearthed nearby, etched with a crude eagle motif that's half Roman, half stylized, in a way that screams cultural mashup, like someone tried to carve the imperial symbol after hearing it described secondhand over too much fermented mare's milk, its loop twisted just enough to suggest it was worn as a talisman rather than jewelry, perhaps by a captive clinging to a piece of home amid the alien steppes. You share a laugh with a fellow digger during a water break, the liquid from your canteen cool and faintly metallic as it slides down your throat, quenching the dryness that builds like a bad habit in this arid playground. If we find a Roman pizza oven next, you quip, wiping your mouth with the back of your hand, I'll bet it came with delivery instructions etched in Latin. Extra olives, hold the nomad raids. He snorts, the sound cutting through the site's quiet hum of brushes and sieves, rattling like distant maracas, and you both chuckle at the absurdity, imagining lost soldiers baking flatbreads over campfires to stave off homesickness, their dough rising stubborn under foreign stars. But the hunt presses on, your fingers numb from sifting, nails caked with grime that smells of deep earth and faint decay, as another team shouts, "Discovery!" A cluster of arrowheads with barbs that twist in a style blending Parthian curves with Roman efficiency, buried in a layer dated vaguely to the 1st century BCE, sparking debates around the evening fire where logs crackle and pop like secretive fireworks, flames dancing shadows across eager faces. You wander the site at dusk, the sky bleeding oranges and purples that reflect off scattered tools left gleaming in the fading light, their handles worn smooth from countless grips, and poke at a section where walls emerge, foundations laid in grids that scream organized planning, stones fitted without the wobble of hasty builds, hinting at engineers trained in Roman camps where precision was drilled harder than recruits. Sensory overload hits when you touch one block, its surface rough yet aligned perfect, the faint vibration from a nearby generator humming like a buried heartbeat, pulling you back to thoughts of those vanished men hammering away under Parthian whips, sweat dripping salty into their eyes as they stacked what might have been their last testament to discipline. Jokes lighten the evening meal of simple stew simmered over the fire, chunks of vegetable and meat bobbing in broth that steams savory and herbal, warming your belly as you spoon it up slow. These stones are straighter than a senator's promise, quips a colleague, ladling more into his bowl with a splash. Bet the Romans built 'em just to show off. Look, even our ruins are superior. You grin, the humor a welcome spark amid the site's stubborn silence, where every find teases without confessing, like a coy informant holding back the juicy bits. Deeper probes reveal more frustrations, coins popping up in clusters, their bronze faces stamped with profiles that could be Augustus or a Han knockoff, edges milled in a way that whispers Mediterranean mints, but tests out as local alloys, leaving you scratching your head under the stars that prick the night sky like ancient pinholes in black velvet. You lie back on a mat near the tents, the ground hard, but yielding slightly under your weight, the cool night air carrying distant howls of wind through valleys that once echoed with caravan bells and marching boots. Another light-hearted jab slips out as you stargaze with the team. If we dig up a Roman complaint letter next, "Dear Emperor, the food's awful. Send garum." I'll frame it as proof they were here, whining all the way. Laughter fades into the quiet, but the debate simmers, artifacts piling up inconclusive. Each one, a breadcrumb, leading nowhere definitive. The Silk Road's vast web, mocking your efforts with its tangled threads. Sleep comes slow, dreams fragmented with shovels, unearthing eagles that dissolve into dust. The puzzle enduring as the sight's shadows lengthen under moonlight, filtering pale and ghostly through tent flaps. You stand on a windswept ridge overlooking a dusty trade route, the Silk Road stretching like a weathered ribbon across the horizon, its path marked by ruts worn deep by centuries of caravans, their wheels groaning under loads of silk that shimmer in your mind's eye like liquid moonlight. The air hums with the faint jingle of camel bells, a distant echo from merchants trudging through, their cloaks flapping in a breeze that carries the sharp scent of sagebrush mixed with the musky tang of animal sweat, a reminder that this ancient highway moved more than goods. It carried people, ideas, and maybe even your lost comrades from Carrhae's bloody sands. Your boots sink into the gritty soil, pebbles crunching like dry bones underfoot as you trace the road's curve with your gaze, imagining Roman captives shuffled along these same paths, their armor clanking in rhythm with the heartbeat of empires, trading blows and treasures alike. You're no longer just a soldier or a prisoner. You're a wanderer in a web of connections where Parthian markets, Han outposts, and nomadic camps blur into a tapestry woven from ambition and exile. You mutter to a fellow traveler, a grizzled Greek who's tagged along for the coin. "This road's seen more drama than a Roman theater bet. It's got stories juicier than a senator's scandal." He chuckles, his laugh dry, as the desert air and you both share a water skin, the liquid cool and faintly earthy, quenching the thirst that builds under a sun that bakes your skin to leather. The canonical event that pulses through this sprawling network is the Han Dynasty's expansion of Silk Road trade routes around the 1st century BCE, when diplomatic missions like Zhang Qian's journeys to the west opened channels that funneled not just spices and fabrics, but also displaced soldiers, mercenaries, and captives, like you, caught in the currents of conquest and commerce that linked Rome to China through a chain of middlemen. You picture Zhang Qian's caravans winding through these same valleys, his scouts bartering with nomads who smelled of horsehide and smoked meat, their tents flapping like sails in the wind, trading tales of distant Dakin your Rome, where men wore iron and built roads straighter than an arrow's flight. The road beneath your feet feels alive, each rut a scar from wheels that carried Parthian silks, Indian gems, and perhaps Roman know-how, eastward, where it mingled like wine in a shared cup. You kick a stone, its skitter echoing faintly, and imagine it rolling past a legionary's lost sandal, dropped in haste during a march like yours, the leather worn thin but still whispering of Roman camps. Historians still debate whether Roman captives truly traversed this route to China, their skills and bloodlines seeding settlements like Lechian, or if the Silk Road's cultural churn created echoes of Rome through trade alone, with artifacts and tactics spreading without flesh, and blood legionaries tagging along. You ponder it while resting under a gnarled tamarisk tree, its shade cool and dappled, leaves rustling soft as whispers against the bark, rough under your hand. The debate feels tangible here, where merchants hawk wares in a babble of tongues, Parthian, Sogdian, something guttural. You can't place each voice weaving the road's story. You barter for a handful of dried apricots, their sweetness bursting chewy and tart on your tongue, a luxury amid the trail's monotony, and share them with your Greek friend, who quips, "These taste like freedom. Too bad they cost more than my last paycheck from Athens." Laughter cuts the dust, but the question lingers. Did your comrades walk this path, or was it just their gear, their ideas, carried like seeds on the wind? The odd detail that snags your attention, making you pause mid-chew, is the sight of a Sogdian trader's cart, its sides painted with faded murals of warriors in scale-like armor, their shields locked in a formation that could be testudo or just artistic flair, the colors chipped but vibrant, depicting a battle scene that feels eerily familiar, like a memory of Carrhae, painted by someone who heard the story third hand. The trader claims it's from a Bactrian market, bought off a nomad who swore it came from western ghosts. But you smirk, thinking it's as likely to be a knockoff as that time you bought authentic Falernian wine that tasted like watered-down vinegar. You trace the mural's lines with a finger, the paint flaking under your touch, and wonder if it's a clue or a tease, a breadcrumb leading nowhere, or a signpost to your lost kin. The road buzzes with life camels grumbling, their breath hot and sour, traders shouting deals over piles of rugs dyed crimson and indigo that scent the air with faint wool and dye. You weave through the chaos, dodging a runaway goat that bleats like it's auditioning for a tragedy, its hooves kicking up dust clouds that settle gritty on your lips. Evenings bring campfires that crackle warm and inviting, their smoke curling upward like prayers to forgotten gods, the scent of burning cedar grounding you as you huddle with others, sharing stories over bowls of lentil stew, simmered thick and savory, spiced with cumin that tingles your palate like a gentle nudge from home. You scoop it up with flatbread, its crust crisp and warm, tearing easily under your fingers, and listen to a Parthian guide, spin tales of silk routes stretching to jade palaces where emperors dine on clouds' exaggeration. Sure, but it paints the East as a land of wonders worth chasing. Another joke slips out as you wipe your hands on your tunic. If we're the Lost Legion, maybe we're just lost tourists. Someone grab a map before we end up in a dragon's lair. The group laughs, the sound mingling with the fire's pop, but the Silk Road's vastness presses in, its paths branching like veins, each one a possible trail for your vanished comrades, their echoes carried in goods, tactics, or blood. You drift to sleep under a sky pricked with stars like scattered coins, the ground hard but familiar beneath your blanket, the air cooling to a crisp bite that nips at your nose. Dreams swirl with caravans snaking through deserts, Roman shields glinting among nomad tents, their bearers fading into faces that could be yours or strangers, blending into the road's endless flow. Morning breaks soft and pink, mist hugging the ground like a shy lover, and you rise to the clatter of pots as breakfast porridge steams, its oaty warmth fogging the chill, grounding you for another day's march. The road stretches on, its ruts guiding you past oases, where date palms sway, their fronds whispering secrets in the breeze, and you spot a broken amphora half buried in the dirt. Its curve Roman, but its clay local, a hybrid relic that teases without confessing. You nudge it with your boot, the shard shifting with a soft scrape, and quip to the Greek, "Found our legion's wine jug empty." Naturally, because Romans don't leave good vintage behind. His grin mirrors yours, the humor a shield against the road's uncertainty. As you press forward, the Silk Road weaving its spell, pulling you deeper into a network where empires blur and legends take root in the dust. Nights deepen with the scent of wildflowers blooming unseen, their honeyed fragrance a fleeting gift against the trail's grind, and you lie back, the ground yielding slightly under your weight, pondering the road's role in scattering not just goods, but lives yours, perhaps, among them. The Silk Road hums with possibility, a corridor where Roman eagles might have flown east, not as conquerors, but as wanderers, their shadows lingering in markets, forts, and bloodlines, waiting for history to catch up. You stand in the shadow of a crumbling Parthian watchtower, its weathered stones jutting like broken teeth against a sky streaked with clouds that drift lazy and low. The air thick with the dry, peppery scent of desert herbs crushed under your boots as you pace the perimeter, your fingers grazing the rough, sun-warmed blocks that feel like they've held secrets longer than Rome's been building roads. The wind hums low, carrying faint echoes of distant hooves and the metallic clink of a caravan's bells, a reminder that you're still tethered to the Silk Road's pulse, a living artery that pumps not just silk and spices, but the lives of men like you captives, turned assets, Romans repurposed in Parthia's sprawling chess game. Your tunic, patched and faded from years of wear, flaps against your legs, its fabric stiff with dust that tastes gritty when you lick your lips, a constant companion in this arid sprawl where water's scarcer than a senator's honesty. You've been stationed here, tasked with guarding this outpost against nomad raids, but your mind wanders to the Parthians' grander strategy, how they took you and thousands like you, survivors of Carrhae's disaster, and didn't just chain you to labor, but molded you into tools of empire, your Roman discipline hammered into their borders like nails in a sturdy plank. You mutter to a fellow guard, a grizzled Cappadocian who's taken to carving dice from bone. They didn't kill us, they recruited us. Bet Crassus is rolling in his grave, knowing we're Parthia's new handyman. He chuckles, tossing a die that skitters across the dirt, and you both share a sip of sour date wine, its tart bite lingering on your tongue like a bad memory. The canonical event anchoring this moment is the Parthian Empire's strategic use of Roman captives post-Carrhae in 53 BCE, as noted by Roman historian Cassius Dio, who describes how Parthia, rather than slaughtering survivors, dispersed them across eastern provinces like Margiana to fortify frontiers, leveraging their engineering and military skills to bolster defenses against steppe nomads, a move as calculated as a forum deal-maker's handshake. You see it unfolding in the tasks you're given, not just patrolling, but building walls laid with the same precision you learned in legion camps, stones fitted tight as puzzle pieces, mortar mixed thick and sticky, its earthy smell grounding you as you trowel it smooth. You help erect a signal tower, its base squared and solid, echoing Roman castra designs, and it feels like home, the rhythmic clink of chisels ringing like old camp songs, though the overseers bark orders in Parthian, their words sharp and unfamiliar, yet oddly motivating. The odd detail that catches your eye, making you pause mid-swing with a hammer that feels heavy as regret, is how some Parthian officers wear Roman-style cloaks, red wool, pinned with fibulae, looted from Carrhae's dead, draped over their shoulders with a swagger that's half tribute, half taunt, like they're auditioning for a triumph parade, but got the script wrong. It's a jarring blend, your culture stitched onto theirs, and you quip to your comrade. Next, they'll be serving garum with their flatbread. Call it fusion cuisine for the frontier. His laugh cuts the tension, echoing off the tower's stones like a brief rebellion. Historians still debate whether this repurposing kept Roman units intact, their cohesion preserved to maximize tactical value, or if captives were scattered like seeds to prevent revolt, their Romanness diluted in Parthian melting pots. You feel the pull both ways. Your squad drills in formations that echo the testudo, shields locking with a satisfying clunk that vibrates through your arms, but you're mixed with locals who wield curved bows and ride like they were born on horseback, forcing you to adapt or fumble. Skirmishes with nomads come swift and sharp, arrows hissing past like angry wasps, the air thick with dust clouds that choke your throat and sting your eyes. But you hold the line, your Roman grit blending with Parthian guile to scatter raiders into the dusk. Victory tastes like sweat and relief, celebrated with shared bowls of stew barley and mutton simmered slow, its savory steam curling warm in the cooling night, chunks chewy and spiced with herbs that tingle your palate like a whisper of home. Around the fire, stories flow. A Parthian archer boasts of outrunning wolves. You counter with a tale of surviving a Gaulish ambush, and laughter binds you. Strangers turned allies under stars that wheel indifferent above. You patrol at dawn, the sky blushing pink over hills that roll soft and green, the ground damp with dew that soaks your sandals and cools your feet like a fleeting gift. The tower's shadow stretches long, its stones etched with faint graffiti, Parthian curses maybe, or a bored Roman scrawl of Veni, Vidi, stuck here, and you trace it with a finger, the carving rough and shallow, wondering how many hands like yours left marks on this frontier. Another joke slips out during a quiet watch as you spot a hawk circling lazy overhead, its cry sharp and free. That bird's got the right idea, fly away, no paperwork, no Parthian bosses, bet it's scouting for better stew than ours. Your comrade snickers, tossing a pebble that arcs and falls short, the sound a soft plink in the morning's hush. But the work grinds on, your hands shaping ramparts that might outlast you, the mortar's wet clay smell mingling with the breeze's herbal freshness, a sensory anchor in a life unmoored. You learn Parthian phrases, halting and clumsy, bartering them with locals for extra bread, its crust crisp and warm, tearing easily under your teeth as you chew slow, savoring the simple fullness. The outpost hums with routine repairs, patrols, the occasional raid that sets your heart pounding as blades clash with sparks and shouts, the coppery tang of blood faint but sharp when a nomad's arrow grazes a friend. You bind the wound with linen strips, the fabric coarse but clean, and share a flask of water that tastes of the clay jug it came from, grounding you both in survival's small victories. Evenings bring fires that crackle lively, their smoke curling upward like incense to forgotten gods, and you listen to tales of eastern lands where rivers run wide and cities gleam with jade, the words painting dreams that flicker like the flames. The debate lingers, unspoken but heavy. Did your comrades shape these borders, their Roman ways carved into Parthian stone, or were they broken apart, scattered like ash, to vanish without trace? You see it in the faces around you, Parthians who nod at your shield work, Romans who adopt local bows, a blending that feels like betrayal, yet also like home. Another quip lightens the mood as you mend a cracked shield, its wood splintered but sturdy. If we're Parthia's new architects, someone owes us a statue bronze, not mud, and none of that eagle-stealing nonsense. Laughter ripples, a brief shield against the weight of years, as the tower looms silent, guarding secrets it refuses to spill. You lie back at night, the ground hard but familiar under your blanket, the stars above pricking the dark like distant campfires, their light cold yet constant. The wind sighs through the tower's cracks, carrying scents of wildflowers blooming unseen, their sweetness a fleeting gift in the desert's harsh embrace. Dreams pull you to Rome, then east again, faces blurring comrades, captors, kin until you wake to the dawn's soft glow. The outpost, stirring with the clatter of pots and the lowing of goats, their milk sour, but sustaining in morning porridge that steams warm in your hands. The Silk Road's pulse beats on, its paths branching toward futures unknown, and you step forward, a Roman in Parthia's employ, tethered to a past that fades but never breaks. You wake to the soft patter of rain on your tent's canvas, a rare gift in this arid Parthian fringe where the sky usually hoards its tears like a miser with coins, the droplets drumming a gentle rhythm that soaks into the earth outside, turning dust to mud that squelches underfoot as you step out. The cool, petrichor scent, rising sharp and refreshing, chasing away the night's stale warmth. You've been here long enough now, reshaped by the empire that claimed you after Carrhae, your Roman edges softened like a blade left too long in the sheath, blending into the local fabric as Parthia plays its long game, using you and your comrades not just as shields, but as threads in their imperial tapestry, weaving Roman strength into their eastern defenses while you adapt, survive, and slowly forget the Tiber's call. The rain slicks your hair, dripping cold down your neck, like a reminder of Gaulish downpours you'd curse back in the legions. But here, it feels like a baptism into this hybrid life, where mornings start with Parthian tea, brewed strong and bitter, in a copper pot that hisses over the fire, its steam curling warm in the damp air, the flavor tannic on your tongue with a hint of cardamom that wakes you sharper than a centurion's shout. You sip it slow, savoring the heat spreading through your chest, and glance at comrades emerging from tents, their faces a mix of Roman ruggedness and local tans, beards trimmed in Parthian style, curled and oiled, making you look less like conquerors and more like merchants who'd lost their way to a bathhouse. The blending starts subtle, creeping in like dawn's light, filtering through clouds. Your days filled with tasks that marry Roman precision to Parthian flair, drilling in mixed formations where you lock shields, Roman style but loose arrows from horseback, like the locals, the bowstring twanging sharp against your fingers, the fletching whispering past your ear as the shaft thuds into a target with satisfying force. You remember the first time you tried riding while shooting, the horse's flanks heaving warm and sweaty under your thighs, its mane whipping your face like a playful slap, nearly tumbling off like a clown in the Circus Maximus bet the gods are laughing, you joked to a Parthian trainer, who grinned and said something in his tongue that sounded like agreement, or maybe mockery, but it bonded you over shared bruises. Evenings bring communal fires where stories clash and merge. Romans spinning yarns of Caesar's Gaulish triumphs over stew bubbling thick with lentils and lamb. The broth savory and spiced, with cumin that bursts warm on your palate, while Parthians counter with tales of desert spirits and silk caravans, their voices rising melodic over the crackle of flames that dance shadows across faces etched with the day's grit. You taste the fusion in the food, too. Roman garum smuggled in jars, its fishy pungency mixed into local sauces that coat flatbread crisp and warm, tearing easily under your teeth, a salty tang that feels like home invading the exotic, making you quip to the group. This sauce is half Rome, half riddle tastes, like victory dipped in mystery. Hope it doesn't conquer my stomach later. The canonical event that underscores this cultural melding is the Parthian-Roman armistice of 20 BCE, when Augustus negotiated the return of Crassus's lost eagles from Carrhae, a diplomatic coup that symbolized Parthia's pragmatic dance with Rome, using captives like you as bargaining chips or embedded assets, while blending their skills into Parthian society, fostering a hybrid frontier culture that echoed in later treaties and trade booms. You feel it in the air during festivals, where Roman dice games catch on with locals, the ivory cubes clattering across a blanket under torchlight that flickers orange and warm, bets placed in a mix of denarii and Parthian drachmae that jingle like laughter in your pouch. You roll a lucky 7, earning cheers and a slap on the back from a Parthian youth whose eyes light up at the game's thrill, his accent mangling Latin words into something new, a pigeon tongue that spreads like wildfire through the outpost, blending Ave with local greetings into a slur that sounds like a drunken salute. Marriages happen too. Tentative at first, a comrade weds a local woman with dark eyes and a laugh like tinkling bells, their union sealed under a canopy of silk banners fluttering in the breeze, the ceremony mixing Roman vows with Parthian rituals, incense burning sweet and heady, its smoke curling upward like prayers to merged gods. You attend, sharing honeyed dates that stick chewy and sweet to your fingers, the flavor bursting rich on your tongue, and joke lightly during the feast. He's gone from legionary to love struck, that his new shield's a cradle, blocks arrows, and midnight cries equally well. The crowd roars, the humor bridging worlds, but it underscores the shift. Families sprouting with children who play with wooden swords, carved Roman, but painted in local motifs. Their giggles, a symphony of blended heritages. Historians still debate whether this cultural blending preserved Roman identity in isolated pockets, allowing captives to maintain traditions like Saturnalia feasts amid Parthian customs, or if it accelerated assimilation, erasing Romanness through intermarriage and adaptation until only faint echoes remained in folklore and artifacts. You see both sides in daily life. A comrade insists on Latin prayers at dawn, his voice low and rhythmic over the outpost stir, while another adopts local tattoos, swirling patterns inked with needles that prick sharp and burn, the soot pigment fading into skin-like shadows at dusk, symbols of protection that mix eagle motifs with Parthian horses, turning arms into living canvases of fusion. You watch the process, the artist humming a tune that blends modes, the air scented with herbal ink that stings your nose, and ponder your own unmarked skin, wondering if you'll yield too. Raids test the hybrid strength nomads strike at twilight, hooves thundering like distant storms, arrows hissing past as you rally in a formation that's half testudo, half Parthian volley, shields clanging metallic, while bows twang in unison, the chaos resolving in shouts, and the coppery tang of blood faint on the wind. Victory feasts follow, with wine flowing tart and heady from amphorae that might have sailed from Italy, mixed with local brews that fizz mild on your tongue, toasts raised in dual languages that slur into one. The unusual detail that sticks with you, odd as a dream half remembered, is how some captives take to breeding Roman-style chickens, plump birds with feathers ruffled like disheveled senators, clucking indignant in coops built from outpost scraps, their eggs fried crisp over fires, with a sizzle that pops warm and inviting, yolks runny and rich, a taste of home that locals adopt eagerly, dubbing them Western squawkers in jest. You crack one open during a meal, the shell fracturing with a soft snap, and quip to the table. These hens lay gold better than Parthian mines, and they don't bite back like nomads. Laughter erupts, easing the blend's bittersweet tug as you chew the warm bite, flavors mingling simple yet profound. Seasons turn, rains giving way to scorching suns that bake the earth hard as brick, winds howling through the tower like ghosts of old battles, and you adapt, further learning to weave baskets from local reeds that bend flexible under your fingers. They're weave tight and patterned with Roman knots, useful for carrying figs, dried sweet and chewy, a snack that sustains patrols where the landscape stretches endless, hills rolling soft under skies, vast and blue. Friendships deepen. A Parthian teaches you star navigation, his finger tracing constellations that differ from Rome's, stories of heroes woven into the twinkling lights, while you share gladius techniques, the blade whistling clean through air during demos that draw crowds murmuring approval. Nights quiet with the outposts' humgoats, bleeding soft, fires dying to embers that glow red and faint, the air cooling to a crisp that nips your skin as you wrap in a blanket, woven local but edged Roman style. You lie awake sometimes, the ground firm beneath you, pondering the fade. Will your Roman fire dim entirely, or spark anew in children who'll speak of eagles in Parthian tongues? Another light-hearted jab slips into thoughts as sleep nears, blending cultures. We're like bad wine, starts Roman, ends surprising, hope it doesn't give the empire a headache. The humor fades into dreams where borders blur, empires entwine, and you drift, a thread in history's vast loom, woven tight, yet pulling free. You sit by a flickering oil lamp in a quiet corner of the Parthian outpost, the flame dancing erratic shadows across the mud brick walls that feel cool and slightly damp against your back, the air thick with the smoky scent of burning sesame oil that tickles your nose and mingles with the faint, earthy musk of rain-soaked soil seeping in from outside. You've been pondering the whispers that swirl around you like dust devils in the step tales of your lost comrades, drifting even farther east, blending into Han lands, or vanishing into myth, stories that grow taller with each retelling around campfires where the wood pops and crackles like secretive laughter. The lamp's wick sputters softly, casting a warm glow on a scrap of parchment you've scrawled notes on, its surface rough under your fingers, inked with questions that nag like an itch you can't quite scratch. Is the legend of the lost legion real? A thread of truth stretched across continents, or just a comforting fable spun from the bones of defeat, enduring because humans can't stand the void of the unknown? You lean back, the straw mat crunching faintly beneath you, and sip from a clay mug of cooled herbal tea, its bitterness cutting through the night's stillness like a sharp reminder that reality often tastes less sweet than the stories we tell ourselves. Outside, a distant owl hoots mournful, its call echoing through the quiet, as if questioning the tales too, and you wonder how a battlefield catastrophe, like Carrhae, ballooned into this epic yarn of wandering Romans, their eagles flying unseen over foreign skies. The rain picks up again, a steady patter on the roof that drums a soothing rhythm, droplets splashing into puddles outside, with soft plops that pool reflective under the moon's pale gaze, mirroring stars that twinkle like scattered jewels in a merchant's hoard. You've heard the myths evolve in taverns and markets along the Silk Road, where traders swap them like spices, stories of Roman soldiers building jade cities in the east, or fighting dragons with testudo shields, each version wilder than the last, blending fact with fancy until you can't tell where history ends and imagination begins. You trace a finger over the parchment, feeling the ink's faint ridges, and recall how these legends took root, perhaps in the quiet despair of captives like you, sharing half-remembered glories to keep spirits afloat, tales that leaked out through caravans and nomad whispers growing legs as they traveled. It's oddly comforting, this blurring, like wrapping yourself in a cloak woven from dreams and doubts. The fabric soft yet fraying at the edges where evidence falls short. You chuckle softly to yourself, imagining a Roman centurion lost in China, barking orders in Latin to baffled locals. Form up, you silk, wearing softy's testudo or bust. Bet he'd trade his gladius for a decent bowl of noodles after that mix-up. The joke lightens the weight in your chest, a brief spark in the lamp's glow, but it underscores the allure, how myths endure, by filling gaps that cold facts leave yawning wide. The canonical event that fuels this mythical fire is the 166 CE mission of Roman envoys to the Han court, recorded in the Hu-Han-Shu as merchants claiming to hail from Emperor Marcus Aurelius's Dakin, arriving by sea with gifts of ivory and rhinoceros horn, but no official seals. A half-hearted contact that blurred the lines between genuine diplomacy and opportunistic trade, sparking centuries of speculation about earlier, unrecorded crossings by lost soldiers seeking new horizons. You picture it unfolding in the Han Emperor's Grand Hall, pillars carved with dragons that coil menacing under torchlight, flickering orange and warm, the air heavy with incense, burning sweet and heady, its smoke curling like questions unanswered as these so-called envoys bow low, their accents mangled and goods exotic, perhaps descendants or echoes of your vanished kin, weaving tales that the court scribes jot down with brushes dipping into ink that smells faintly of pine resin. It's a tantalizing near miss, this encounter, hinting at worlds brushing close without fully touching, like ships passing in fog-shrouded seas, their lanterns winking brief before vanishing into mist. You set the mug down with a soft clink on the earthen floor, the tea's residue bitter on your lips, and lean forward, the lamp's heat warming your face as you weigh the sparse evidence, those genetic whispers. In Lichian, the archaeological teases in Margiana against the legend's magnetic pull, a story that refuses to die because it speaks to something deeper, the human itch for connection across chasms of time and space. Historians still debate whether the lost legion's myth stems from genuine migrations of Roman captives eastward, their footprints faded but real in Han records and Central Asian ruins, or if it's a romantic construct built on coincidences like similar tactics and stray artifacts, amplified by cultural wishful thinking without a shred of concrete proof to anchor it. You mull it over as the rain eases to a drizzle, the patter softening to a whisper that lulls like a bedtime tale, droplets tracing silvery paths down the tent flap visible through the doorway, pooling in depressions that reflect the lamp's glow like tiny mirrors. The debate feels personal now. After all you've endured, the marches, the battles, the slow fade into this blended life, wondering if your story will morph into myth too, exaggerated in retellings, until you're a ghost marching eternal across maps. You rise, stretching limbs stiff from sitting, the joints popping faint like distant thunder, and step to the doorway, the cool mist kissing your skin as you gaze into the night, the outpost quiet save for a guard's cough, echoing, muffled. Evidence is thin, like the rain's veil, those DNA markers that hint but don't holler, artifacts that tease without confessing, yet the legend thrives, a resilient weed in history's garden, blooming because it satisfies that primal urge to believe the impossible, to imagine Roman sandals treading Han soil, eagles soaring over jade walls. The odd detail that snags your thoughts, quirky as a dream fragment, is the persistent rumor in some Parthian lore of Roman captives inventing a hybrid game dice mixed with local backgammon, played on boards etched with eagle motifs and Parthian horses, the pieces clattering ivory against wood in a rhythm that blended chance with strategy, a pastime that spread eastward and might echo in Han gambling tales, turning heads among scholars who chase such cultural crumbs. You smile at the image, picturing grizzled legionaries hunched over a board under starlight, the dice tumbling with soft thuds, bets placed in mixed coins that jingle merry, a light-hearted escape from captivity's grind that perhaps traveled farther than the men themselves, seeding fun in foreign lands. Bet they called it Eagle's Gamble, roll a 7, win a horse, snake eyes, guard duty with the grumpy camels, you jest to yourself. The humor, a soft chuckle in the quiet, easing the night's weight as the lamp flickers lower, its flame sputtering like a story winding down. Myths endure. For this reason, they're malleable, shaping to fit our needs, whether for identity in Lichian's villages or morale in outposts like yours. A narrative glue, holding fragments together. When facts scatter like leaves in wind, you blow out the lamp, the wick extinguishing with a puff of smoke that curls acrid and brief, plunging the space into darkness, softened by moonlight filtering through clouds. The rain now, a distant memory as you settle back, the mat yielding soft under your weight, thoughts drifting to what makes a story stick. Not always truth, but the spark it ignites in the teller and listener alike. You close your eyes, the outpost sounds fading a horse, nickering soft in its stall, the wind sighing through cracks like a sigh of resignation, and reflect on the legend's power, how it reshapes reality, blurring lines, until you're not sure where one ends and the other begins. Perhaps that's the point, the enduring question that keeps historians arguing and dreamers dreaming, a tale that refuses burial because it lives in the gaps, thriving on what-ifs like a plant in rocky soil. Another quip bubbles up in your mind as sleep creeps in. Myth versus reality? It's like arguing with a mirror. Both sides look convincing, but one's just your reflection talking back. The thought brings a final smile, light and fleeting, as darkness claims you, the night deep and still, myths whispering on. You lie awake in the dim glow of a dying fire, embers pulsing soft and red like the last breaths of a fading star, the night air cool against your skin, carrying the faint, woody scent of smoldering logs that crackle sporadic in the quiet, wrapping the outpost in a hush, broken only by the distant howl of wind through the tower's cracks, a sound like ghosts murmuring secrets from battles long forgotten. You've come so far from Carrhae's bloody sands, your Roman bones now steeped in Parthian dust, reshaped by years of marches, skirmishes, and that slow, inevitable blending that turns captives into something new, neither fully eagle nor fully horse archer, but a hybrid soul, wandering the edges of empires that rise and crumble like waves on a distant shore. The legacy of your lost legion isn't etched in grand monuments or Senate decrees. It's whispered in the gaps of history, reshaping how you see the vast machinery of power, where one defeat ripples outward, scattering men like seeds across maps that emperors draw but never fully control. You stare at the stars overhead, pinpricks of light in the velvet dark that wheel indifferent to human struggles, and wonder how many of your comrades faded into similar nights, their stories dissolving into local folklore, or buried under layers of time, yet enduring in the quiet ways that memory clings stubborn to the world. The canonical event that echoes through this reflection is the Roman-Parthian peace of 20 BCE, when Augustus reclaimed Crassus's lost eagles in a diplomatic triumph that masked the deeper scars, parading the standards through Rome's streets amid cheers and incense, burning sweet in the air, a symbolic closure that ignored the thousands like you left behind, their fates woven into Parthia's fabric as living remnants of a war that never truly ended. You remember hearing rumors of it trickling through trade caravans, merchants boasting of the eagle's return while you toiled on frontier walls. The news, bitter as unripe olives chewed slow under a relentless sun, a reminder that empires measure victory in symbols, while men pay in sweat and silence. It reshapes your view of power's illusion. Rome crows triumph. Parthia smirks quietly, holding on to the real prizes. Your skills, your resilience, the human capital that bolsters borders without fanfare. You shift on your mat, the straw crunching faint beneath you, and think of how this one negotiation rippled across the east, easing tensions that allowed Silk Road caravans to flow freer, their camels groaning under bolts of fabric that slip smooth through fingers, scents of spice, and far-off markets mingling in the air like promises half-kept. Historians still debate whether the lost legion's dispersal strengthened Parthia enough to prolong its standoff with Rome, their Roman-infused defenses buying decades of stability in art and architecture that echoed hybrid styles. Or, if the captive's influence was overstated, mere footnotes in an empire that thrived on its own cunning long after the eagles flew home. You ponder it as the fire dims further, its warmth fading to a gentle glow that casts long shadows across the ground, where footprints from the day's patrols mingle indistinct, a metaphor for how individual lives blur into the larger march of time. The debate feels distant yet personal, like arguing with your own reflection in a rain puddle that ripples under a breeze, distorting the image until you're not sure what's real anymore. You've seen the blending firsthand, Roman roads paved straighter through Parthian valleys, their gravel crunching firm under wagon wheels that carry goods farther, faster, reshaping trade that binds east to west in ways no single battle could. It makes you question memory's fragility, how empires etch their glories in stone, while the defeated slip into obscurity, their resilience, the quiet force that outlasts, marble columns, crumbling under ivy that creeps slow and green. The odd detail that lingers in your mind, quirky as a half-remembered dream, is how some captives took to breeding exotic birds from Roman stock peacocks with feathers iridescent and fanning wide in displays that turned heads among Parthian nobles, their calls screeching sharp in the dawn like misplaced trumpets, a luxury imported from Western aviaries that became status symbols in Eastern courts, strutting through gardens where fountains trickle cool and melodic. You smile at the absurdity, imagining a legionary turned bird keeper cooing to his flock while nomads raid nearby, the peacock's tails blooming vibrant against the drab outpost walls, a splash of color in a world of sand and strategy. It reshapes your sense of human endurance, how even in chains, men plant pieces of home feathers, games, recipes that take root and flourish, outlasting the wars that scattered them. You rise quietly, stepping outside where the rain has left the air fresh and heavy with petrichor that clings to your tunic, damp and cool, the ground soft underfoot like a yielding embrace after the day's hardness. The tower looms silent, its stones etched with weathering that tells of storms survived, much like your own scars, faded lines from arrows and time, reminders of resilience that doesn't shout but persists, quiet as roots, delving deep into unyielding soil. You walk the perimeter under a clearing sky, stars emerging brighter now, their light cold yet constant, piercing the dark like distant hopes that guide wanderers through nights longer than this one. The legacy isn't in gold or glory, it's in the human spark that adapts, endures, reshapes empires from the inside out. Memory, a thread that binds the forgotten to the future. You pause by a low wall, fingers tracing mortar joints, firm and true, built by hands like yours, Roman grit in Parthian service, and feel a quiet pride in that unseen contribution. How one legion's loss seeded strengths that echoed across borders, challenging views of defeat as final, when really it's just a pivot, a new direction in the endless flow. A light joke bubbles up as you spot a peacock feather caught in the mud, iridescent even in moonlight. Bet that bird's legacy outshines ours flashy tails over forgotten shields. At least it gets the ladies without a fight. The humor softens the night's edge, a gentle nudge against the weight of reflection. As you head back, the fire now ashes glowing faint, the outpost sleeping peaceful under the vast, indifferent sky. You settle again, blanket warm around you, the mat yielding soft, and let thoughts drift to how this tale reshapes everything empires, as fragile constructs, memory as the true conqueror, resilience, the quiet hero that marches on when banners fall. It's a comforting blur, the edges of your story softening into legend, where facts fade, but the essence lingers, inspiring those who hear it to see their own struggles in a kinder light, enduring not despite the loss, but because of it. You drift now, the night's hush enveloping you like a soft, enveloping shroud, the distant murmur of wind through the tower fading into a gentle sigh that carries away the weight of marches and mysteries, leaving only the quiet assurance that stories like yours, woven from the threads of forgotten paths and resilient hearts, find their way into the world's quiet corners, blooming unexpected in the minds of those who listen under similar stars. Let the images blur softly, the dusty roads stretching endless, the eagles glinting faint in memory's haze, the blended faces of comrades turning to whispers on the breeze, until all that remains is a peaceful warmth, a sense that the journey, though long and winding, circles back to rest, reassuring you that even in the vast tapestry of empires and time, your thread matters, enduring in its subtle strength. As the embers dim to nothingness, the darkness deepens kind and inviting, pulling you toward dreams where borders dissolve and horizons welcome, the legend settling like a blanket over your thoughts, soft and final. Good night, traveler. May your own paths lead to gentle shores,